Chapter 255. This should be what my sister looks like now. When she reaches your age, she'll look very similar and be able to pass off as the real thing. However, it's impossible for your temperaments to be the same. Chen Hao stared at the girl in the blue dress. After a slight pause, he continued, My sister is lively, cute, and smart. When she grows up, she'll definitely be gentle, quiet, and understanding. You, on the other hand, are too cold. Chen Shui snorted. She was even more displeased. Chen Hao had praised his sister like a flower. She was looking forward to a better evaluation of herself, but all she got was cold. Especially when Chen Hao spoke of his sister. His gaze was gentle and filled with love, but when he spoke of her, it was as if he was talking to a stranger. We're about the same age. I'm 21, and you're not even 18. Are you trying to usurp the throne? If you don't want to, then forget it. You're wearing a veil when talking to your brother. How do you expect me to recognize you? Take off the veil and I'll recognize you. If I don't, I won't recognize you. No, my master. Mother said that I can't take off the veil in front of anyone. It's fine if you don't recognize me, but I don't care. Remember, if you don't want to die, you'd better activate the teleportation talisman at noon and leave this place. Otherwise, if the disciples of the Flying Sword faction send back the news that you're in the ancient Black Wind Cave, they'll probably do something to you. Goodbye. Chen Shui turned to leave. Fan Feng was a super genius of the Flying Sword faction. If he died, the faction would be the first to know. However, it wouldn't be the seal of life and death, but the longevity tablet. At Fan Feng's level, even if there was a seal of life and death on his soul, it would be removed. Otherwise, it would become one of the factors that restricted his growth. Chen Hao was well aware of this. However, the longevity tablet wouldn't. It was only connected by aura. When Fan Feng died, his longevity tablet would shatter. However, they wouldn't know where Fan Feng was placed. However, the other disciples of the Flying Sword faction would definitely send back the news. Wait, what? You have to tell me which faction you're from and how to find you before you leave, Chen Hao said. You don't even recognize me, so why are you looking for me? I didn't say that I don't recognize him. It's just that I can't say it out loud. After all, we are still strangers, aren't we? Besides, even if I don't look for you, my father will look for you in the future. In 2 months, I will go to the 100 Empire rankings. I will also make a trip back to the mortal world to give the things your mother gave me to father. Why don't you come with me? Chen Hao said. Chen Hao originally wanted to lift Chen Shui's veil, so he deliberately did not admit it, because Chen Shui gave him a very, very familiar feeling. There were 2 reasons for this familiarity. Firstly, although she and her younger sister Chen Yan had different temperaments, their appearances were extremely similar. Secondly, with Chen Hao's sharp soul intuition, he felt that Chen Shui's words, actions, and eyes didn't seem to be the first time they met. He always felt strange, and the strange thing was Chen Shui's veil. Although Chen Hao felt that this veil was exactly the same as an ordinary veil, and he couldn't grasp any mysteries, his sharp soul intuition made him feel that this veil was definitely not an ordinary veil. In addition, with the treasure-hunting swords whispering in his mind, he was even more certain that Chen Shui's veil was definitely a treasure, and a very high-level treasure that could hide one's aura. In other words, the aura he felt now was definitely not Chen Shui's real aura. Then who was she? Leng Yihan? Chen Hao had thought about it before. After all, Leng Yihan had some characteristics of a woman. Small hands, the occasional loss of voice, etc., all had that kind of aura. But Leng Yihan was a real man, so it shouldn't be fake. Chen Hao could feel a bloody aura from Leng Yihan that only men had. It was an aura that women couldn't have. So he could only rule out Leng Yihan. If that wasn't the case, Chen Shui was most likely Leng Yihan. Then it would be very easy to explain, and there would be no doubts. I'm not going. I recognize you, but that doesn't mean I'll recognize him. My mother has forgotten everything now. She only knows that I'm her disciple, but she doesn't know that I'm her daughter. I only found out when I saw the message my mother left me. You don't have to look for me. The things my mother left him naturally have my identity. If he wants to find me, he can find me. I'm leaving. Chen Shui, who was hidden under the veil, frowned. Her expression became extremely complicated, as if she couldn't control her emotions. Obviously, this matter had affected her much more than Chen Hao. After speaking, she didn't give Chen Hao a chance to speak again. She directly pushed open the palace door, turned into a stream of light, and disappeared into the sky. Her speed was so fast that even Chen Hao couldn't do it. Chen Hao sighed softly and shook his head helplessly. He understood how Chen Shui felt at this moment. It was difficult for him to recognize a sister that he had never met. Moreover, to recognize a father who was abandoned before he was born? Once, Chen Hao also thought that he was a child abandoned by his biological parents. What was he thinking at that time? Even if there was, he wouldn't recognize it. Chen Shui came to help him and recognized him as her brother. She was already much stronger than he was back then. She's still stronger than me. It seems that I have to work harder. After flying out of the safe zone, the girl in the blue dress who called herself Chen Shui gritted her teeth. Her face flashed with a touch of determination, and as fast as lightning, she flew towards the area that wasn't shown on the positioning disc. After a few hours, when she was sure that there was no one around, the girl in the blue dress stopped in a dead hole and gently took off her black veil, revealing a beautiful little face. He must have noticed that my veil isn't ordinary. However, he shouldn't be suspicious, Chen Shui said to herself. As she spoke, the veil shone with a mysterious light and actually merged into her body. At the same time, her graceful figure completely changed in an instant. There were no longer any curves. Similarly, her beautiful face also quietly changed. However, she had just finished changing and was still wearing the blue dress. She looked a little nondescript and almost like a transvestite. She frowned and said, "No, if I happen to meet him again, I'm afraid he'll be even more suspicious. It's better to use my real face. Even the red flame beast can appear. I'm afraid it'll be lively tomorrow." Immediately, the black veil covered her face again. She regained the appearance of the girl in the blue dress. Whoosh! A figure shuttled back and forth in the black-wind ancient cave as fast as lightning and had already entered the area that wasn't shown on the positioning disc. This figure was Chen Hao. After Chen Shui left, Chen Hao didn't waste any time and directly left the safe zone. There were only 2 months of training time. Chen Hao didn't need to change places. He didn't care about Chen Shui's reminder. 2 months' time was enough for him to master the concealment technique. If he couldn't defeat his opponent, there would be no problem for him to escape quietly. 2 days later, under the guidance of the treasure-hunting sword spirit, Chen Hao obtained 5 low-grade spiritual weapons and a lot of black iron ores. Although the demonic beasts he encountered were powerful, for Chen Hao, they were really no challenge. Therefore, Chen Hao could only continue to go deeper and deeper. At this moment, he was about to walk out of the area covered by the transmission talisman. Just as Chen Hao turned into an enormous underground tunnel that was thousands of meters wide, he saw an enormous whirlpool that seemed to be flowing slowly like lava 100 miles ahead. It was particularly striking in the gloomy cave. Underground cave mansion. From Ito Ta, Chen Hao had learned that there were countless underground caves in the Black Wind ancient cave. However, in the past 2 days, Chen Hao had discovered many underground caves, probably because he was within the range of the transmission talisman. However, although Chen Hao had discovered many underground caves, they had all been taken by others. It was the first time Chen Hao saw an underground cave mansion guarding the lava whirlpool. Although there were already more than 10 cultivators sitting cross-legged in front of the lava whirlpool. "She's here too." After seeing the dazzling girl in the blue dress in the crowd, Chen Hao's figure flashed and quickly flew over. Another one. What a majestic blood qi. Not long after Chen Hao rushed in, a figure strangely appeared at the fork in the road. He was dressed in a black robe, and his face was so pale that it was devoid of any color. It was like a freshly painted wall, but his lips were bright red as if he had applied lipstick. His whole body was filled with an extremely cold aura that made people's hair stand on end. A total of 15. 13 of them are at the peak of the late stage of the Golden Core realm. That beautiful girl's aura is obscure. At most, she is at the peak of the late stage of the Golden Core realm. This guy who just came is only at the late stage of the Golden Core realm, but his blood chi is stronger than anyone else. Not bad, not bad. It's enough for me to have a good meal. The zombie-masked figure said eerily. His aura was filled with a strong demonic aura. Obviously, he was a demonic cultivator and was half a step away from the nascent soul realm. With me, we can open it. After the figure finished speaking, the demonic aura around him suddenly disappeared. At the same time, he took out a human skin mask and put it on his face. In an instant, he became a handsome young man with a graceful demeanor. With this middle-grade spiritual artifact, the Thousand Illusion Mask, even a nascent soul realm cultivator can't sense my aura. It would be better if there is a big harvest in this cave mansion. Hiss! His figure flashed and this handsome young man, who looked like a gentleman, rushed toward the lava whirlpool as fast as lightning. Ha! Another lone traveler. Not bad, not bad. Only one more is left. It would be best if there is another lone traveler. That way, we won't have to compete for the right to enter. When Chen Hao appeared in front of the 14 people, one of the cultivators who was at the peak of the Golden Core realm said happily after sensing Chen Hao's cultivation level. Especially after sensing that Chen Hao was only at the Golden Core realm, he was even happier. Upon closer inspection, the lava whirlpool restriction in this underground cave mansion had 16 small whirlpools that looked like black holes evenly distributed in it. This meant that this underground cave mansion was a rare level 4 cave mansion. It required 16 people to activate their energy at the same time to open it. In the Black Wind Ancient Cave, there were usually 4 levels of cave mansions. A level 1 cave mansion required 4 people to open, a level 2 cave mansion with 8 people, and a level 3 cave mansion with 12 people. A level 3 cave mansion was very rare. To be exact, in this area of 100,000 miles, it was rare to not have a complete cave mansion, let alone a level 4 cave mansion. In a level 4 cave mansion, the chances of obtaining a middle-grade spiritual artifact were very high. It was even possible to obtain a superior-grade spiritual artifact. This was definitely a great opportunity. Chapter 256. Chen Hao's gaze swept across Chen Shui's group of 14 and instantly determined that these cultivators were divided into 4 battalions. Chen Shui was alone, and 2 of the 13 were in groups of 5. The cultivator who spoke just now was in one of the groups of 5, and the 3 cultivators who had restrained their auras were in another group. My luck is pretty good, Chen Hao said with a faint smile to Chen Shui, who was sitting alone but frequently attracted the attention of others. After speaking, he didn't mind the gazes of the 13 people and walked over to Chen Shui. In the eyes of the crowd, Chen Hao's luck is pretty good implied that he met the beautiful girl in the blue dress. He's so reckless. If he could get close to this beautiful girl, would he even have a chance? He's only at the late stage of the Golden Core realm. Hee, I seem to be able to see this kid spitting out blood. The 13 people looked at Chen Hao with ridicule in their hearts. Half an hour ago, when the girl in the blue dress arrived, these young disciples were naturally attracted by her peerless appearance and tried to get close to her. Unfortunately, the girl in the blue dress who concealed her aura didn't give anyone a chance. When a solo cultivator from a 7th grade sect tried to use his strength and identity to act frivolous, he was seriously injured by the girl in the blue dress in one move and lost the qualification to enter the underground cave. Because if he continued to stay here, not only would he lose face, but he would also be killed by the girl in the blue dress. He could only scram. To everyone's surprise, the distance Chen Hao approached the girl in the blue dress completely exceeded the limit of ordinary men and women. When he was only a meter away from the girl, he smiled and sat down. What made these guys even more puzzled was that the girl in the blue dress's aura didn't change at all. She actually allowed Chen Hao to sit beside her. Damn it, is this gigolo so good? He's just a little more handsome than us. Did you follow me here? Chen Shui's beautiful eyes hidden under the black veil looked at Chen Hao and frowned. She immediately turned her head and asked through voice transmission. It's just a coincidence. You should leave. I'm afraid that the people from the Flying Sword sect have already reached the entrance of the ancient Black Wind Cave. What are you afraid of? At most, they would send an early nascent soul realm disciple to deal with me, and they wouldn't dare to do it openly. Those three aren't ordinary people, Chen Hao pointed out. I know. Be careful, they might be people from the demonic Tao and are very strong. After you enter, use your fastest speed to gather at the core palace. Don't be greedy for the treasures and mineral veins ahead. Qin Shui didn't say anything more. The fact that Chen Hao could come at this time made her feel slightly relieved. Although the other three fellows with chilly auras who didn't say a word concealed it very well, Qin Shui's keen perception was still able to capture an obscure evil aura from the three of them. If it was Qin Shui alone, she really did not have the confidence. However, with the addition of Chen Hao, there was nothing to fear. Someone is coming. Qin Shui's voice had just sounded when Chen Hao also sensed a rapidly approaching aura. In the blink of an eye, it appeared in everyone's line of sight. My luck isn't bad. Looks like it's just right. The newcomer smiled slightly and calmly swept his gaze over everyone present. When it came to Chen Hao and Qin Shui, it paused for a moment and said. His aura was also restrained, but everyone could clearly feel that this seemingly elegant young man was very strong. What a strong aura! Qin Shui was slightly surprised and said telepathically, this person is very strong and he's wearing a mask. Wearing a mask? Chen Hao was slightly stunned. With his keen perception and Qin Shui's keen perception, he could also feel that the newcomer was not as simple as he looked. The energy hidden in his body was extremely terrifying and was definitely stronger than that of Fan Fong, who was half a step away from the nascent soul realm. Moreover, he should be the same as the other three and was definitely not a righteous cultivator. However, Chen Hao couldn't see that the other party was wearing a mask. Faced with this situation, although Chen Hao knew that if the treasure-hunting sword spirit and Itoda sensed it, they would definitely be able to see something, but now he was on an adventure and the mysterious existence had already ruled over all the messy things in his mind. In these 2 days, the treasure-hunting sword spirit only reminded him when he sensed the treasures and mineral veins. Everything else depended on himself. That's right, Qin Shui said affirmatively. While Chen Hao and Qin Shui were communicating telepathically, everyone stood up. Among them, the cultivator who spoke when Chen Hao came over said, "The 16 of us are here, let's go in. Everyone will rely on their own luck. Don't worry, although we have many people in the Wise King Valley, we will never bully anyone. As long as you don't take anything you shouldn't. Do you think the Wind and Thunder sect is afraid of you? Young lady, after you enter, you are welcome to come to me, Zhao Chuang. A weak gigolo will not feel safe. The Wise King Valley is nothing in my eyes." Hiss! Chen Shui and Chen Hao glanced at each other, and then they paid no attention to these arrogant and despotic sect disciples that thought they had the advantage in numbers. At the same time, they transformed into 2 flowing lights that chose the 2 black hole entrances above the lava vortex and charged over. The last person to arrive sneered in his heart. However, at this time, he didn't do anything. Together with the other 3 people with similar auras, he silently merged into the black hole. Idiot! With your cultivation base and appearance, you're like a toad lusting after a swan's meat. She would like me, not you? Let's go! The cultivator from the Wise King Valley said disdainfully to the people from the Wind and Thunder sect. After speaking, the 5 of them also merged into the black hole. The Wind and Thunder sect disciple who was ignored by Qin Shui again had a vicious look in his eyes. He also flew into the corresponding black hole. Hiss! Rumble! The moment the 16 of them gathered, a mysterious and ancient aura spread out. At this moment, the lava whirlpool suddenly sped up and emitted 16 rays of bright red light. Then, Chen Hao and the others appeared in a strange underground cave. This was a huge, dark cave. It was unknown how high it was, and it was impossible to see the top. It was at least 10,000 feet wide. Instead of calling it an underground cave, it was more appropriate to call it another world. Dark clouds as black as ink filled the entire cave. One could reach out and touch them. In the cave, there were a few small palaces that emitted ancient auras scattered around. Huff! The moment Qin Hao appeared, a gust of wind blew through the cave. The dark clouds in front of him immediately scattered with the wind, like ink spreading in water. It was a black wind. No wonder it's called the ancient Black Wind Cave. It's really dark, Chen Hao thought to himself as he sensed the black wind that was as sharp as knives. If it were an ordinary person, their body would have been torn apart by such a violent wind. Every gust of black wind was filled with violent energy of heaven and earth. The roars of demonic beasts could be heard from afar. It was abnormally terrifying. There are a total of 16 directions in this level 4 cave dwelling. Although Chen Shui and I were next to each other when we entered, we might not meet in advance. She's very strong, especially her speed. The others are not a threat, except for that guy at the back. However, it should be fine if we avoid the battle. Chen Hao thought to himself. After the 16 of them entered this level 4 cave dwelling, they would appear in an underground cave. The 16 caves would converge towards the core. The entire cave dwelling was actually a huge circle with a radius of 40,000 miles. At the center of the cave dwelling was the treasure vault. Every 10,000 miles the 16 of them advanced, the two caves would merge into one. In other words, after Chen Hao advanced for 10,000 li, he would enter the same cave with another person. After another 10,000 li, the other two would enter the same cave with them, and so on and so forth. Finally, all 16 of them would gather at the core palace. Although the routes were so, they would not necessarily meet. It would depend on their speed. If they converged, it was possible for two people to meet at the same speed. However, the probability was very small. Because everyone would advance with all their might, the faster one would pass first and naturally obtain more treasures. Chen Hao did not hesitate. His figure flashed as he faced the demonic beasts in front of him and advanced quickly. Low-grade spirit weapon. Low-grade spirit weapon. Black iron or Qin Shui's speed was as fast as lightning. When she encountered powerful demonic beasts, she would avoid them if she could. If she could not avoid them, she would kill them in one strike. Her perception was even stronger than Chen Hao's. Wherever she passed, she could sense any spirit treasure or vein. However, she did not stop. Although the low-grade spirit weapon and black sky ore were precious, she could only give them up. The treasures in the core palace were the most important. As expected of a level 4 cave abode. What a fucking waste. Forget it, as long as we get the treasures in the core palace, we'll be rich. The disciples of the wise King Valley and the Wind and Thunder sect were confident that they would win. Although the other 3 people in a group were strong, they were not as strong as them in terms of numbers and were not a concern. They, who did not understand Chen Hao's strength, did not put Chen Hao in their eyes. Although Chen Shui and the lone cultivator who appeared last were strong and they were not confident of defeating them in a one-on-one battle, they were not a concern in terms of numbers. Therefore, for the treasures in the core palace, the 16 people who entered almost all gave up on the small profits before them. Kiki. In another direction, after a figure appeared in the cave abode, the aura around him suddenly bloomed. Accompanied by a sinister laugh, a pure and terrifying demonic aura spread out in all directions, causing the surrounding dark clouds to rumble. Beautiful girl, a guy with boundless vitality, treasures in the core palace. I'm drooling. His figure flashed as he charged toward the core of the cave abode. He was as fast as lightning. It's shameful to waste, this is not my style. Well, I'm fast anyway. Treasure hunting, pick up valuable items, don't waste them. With his powerful soul, Chen Hao's sensing ability was on par with the treasure hunting sword spirit. However, his ability to identify treasures was far from it. At this moment, as he flew quickly, he could sense the aura of spirit weapons and or veins coming from some of the palaces. It would be a pity if he gave up just like that. Although an inferior grade spirit weapon was worthless to Chen Hao, it would still be worth a lot if he sold it for pills. Black iron ore was just as precious. It was still very valuable to Chen Hao. Middle grade spirit weapon. Chen Hao, who was scavenging while flying quickly, sensed an aura that was much stronger than the inferior grade spirit weapons he had encountered before the treasure hunting sword's spirit reminded him. Chapter 257. What a strong aura! Chen Hao continued to search as he flew. After traveling for 10,000 miles, he came to the first crossroad, which was the junction of another passage. Even though the treasure-hunting sword spirit did not warn him, Chen Hao sensed an aura that was beyond that of a low-grade spiritual artifact coming from the huge palace at the crossroad. I'm afraid that only a middle-tier spirit weapon could produce such a strong fluctuation. Chen Hao smiled. Middle-grade spiritual artifacts were very rare among the disciples of the Golden Core realm. Even a 7th-rank sect would find it difficult to obtain one. Firstly, it was very expensive, which made many people shrink back. Secondly, it was in short supply. Once it appeared in any auction, it would cause a commotion. This was especially true for the most used treasured swords and sabers. Die! Chen Hao suddenly increased his speed to the limit. The true core strength around him surged and surged. He slapped at the several powerful demonic beasts guarding the entrance of the huge palace from 100 feet away. These demonic beasts were obviously very powerful in the later stage of the Golden Core realm. If other disciples at the peak of the later stage of the Golden Core realm encountered them, they would have to expend a lot of effort. However, under Chen Hao's abnormal combat strength, there was no suspense at all. The battle ended in just 2 minutes. Open! Not wanting to waste any time, Chen Hao directly activated his energy and violently blasted at the entrance of the palace that was covered with restrictions, brutally destroying it. The door was broken open, and a long narrow passage appeared in front of Chen Hao. It was only 10 feet wide, but thousands of feet long. Chen Hao saw the end of the passage at a glance. On a circular altar, there was a dazzling treasure robe. Middle-grade treasure robe. Ao. Just as Chen Hao's eyes flashed with excitement and he was about to rush over, the narrow passage suddenly flashed with a dark light. What surprised Chen Hao was that in just a moment, the entire passage was filled with thousands of demonic beasts at the later stage of the Golden Core realm. They were densely packed together, filling the entire passage and roaring at him. Amazing! As expected, the more powerful a treasure is, the harder it is to obtain it. Even though these demonic beasts aren't strong, their numbers are too great. If I want to obtain the treasured clothes, then I must kill all these tigers that stand in my way. If the protective armor was only a low-grade spiritual artifact, Chen Hao would have given up after seeing such a scene. After all, it would take some time to kill all the demonic beasts. However, the aura of this treasure robe was obviously a middle-grade spiritual weapon. It was more precious and rare than a middle-grade spiritual weapon. Chen Hao needed it very much, so he naturally could not give it up. The hand that was grabbing the treasure robe directly drew a beautiful arc. His entire body turned smoothly and agilely, and a bright sword light suddenly shot out. This figure saw Chen Hao's expression, but he was not surprised at all. Instead, there was a trace of evil sneer, as if he had already discovered him. Boom! A terrifying energy exploded, and the two figures retreated at the same time. Chen Hao was not in a hurry and kept the treasure robe in the storage space. How is this possible? Brat, you actually discovered me? The guy who was repelled by Chen Hao in one move had a trace of surprise and viciousness in his eyes. He stared at Chen Hao and said coldly. The evil aura around him surged crazily. Your strength is not bad. You are barely qualified to fight with me. Chen Hao slowly raised the 5-element sword in his hand and pointed the tip of the sword at the opponent. He said arrogantly, and an incomparably sharp sword intent raged out. Brat, you are only in the late stage of the Golden Elixir realm. How dare you be arrogant in front of me, the bloodthirsty direwolf? You should have heard of the methods of the 3 bloodthirsty wolves, right? Leave the treasure robe and be my dog, and I will let you live. I have never heard of it, and no one will ever hear of it in the future, Chen Hao said disdainfully. Before he finished speaking, he stabbed out with his sword. In an instant, it was as if space had been torn apart. An incomparably sharp sword intent spread out and instantly enveloped the bloodthirsty direwolf who was hundreds of feet away. You are courting death. Break for me. The bloodthirsty direwolf roared and punched out. A long blood-red river whizzed out. The monstrous demonic aura instantly locked onto and shattered Chen Hao's sword intent. The bloodthirsty direwolf used 100% of his strength in this punch. He originally thought that Chen Hao would be shocked when he heard his name. Although he would not surrender, his combat strength would definitely be greatly reduced, which would make it easier for him to kill him. After all, the reputation of the three bloodthirsty wolves was rather resounding to Golden Core Realm sect disciples. However, Chen Hao was not afraid. Instead, he attacked coldly. This made him extremely angry. Boom! The palace shook violently. The terrifying demonic energy was like a flash flood. A blood-red wolf head vaguely appeared and fiercely collided with Chen Hao's sword light. Bang! 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 The ground cracked and Chen Hao retreated 3 steps. However, the bloodthirsty direwolf's body only shook slightly and then violently attacked again. Amazing! This guy's strength is only a little weaker than Fan Fong's. He is only at the peak of the late Golden Core Realm. It seems that the demonic cultivators are indeed stronger at the same level. This was the first time that Chen Hao had fought with a demonic cultivator. He did not dare to be careless. He repeatedly waved the 5-element sword. Sword Light attacked and defended in an orderly manner. The battle intent around him soared crazily. He is only at the late Golden Core Realm. He is able to block my full-strength attack. He should be proud of himself among the disciples of the sect. If he was at the peak of the late Golden Core Realm, I am afraid that I would not be able to take him down. The bloodthirsty direwolf's eyes turned scarlet. When he was 500 feet away from Chen Hao, he suddenly opened his fists. A crescent-shaped scarlet arc of light suddenly condensed. Let's see how you block it. Under the bloodthirsty direwolf's control, the scarlet arc of light, which was even more condensed, flashed with a hiss. It seemed to tear the void apart and violently slashed at Chen Hao. Child's play. Sensing the strength of his opponent's attack, Chen Hao's battle-intent soared. Instead of being shocked, he was delighted. Especially in a place where there was no one watching, he had no scruples. Instead of retreating, he moved forward and stabbed out with his sword. Buzz. The 5-element sword was originally shining with a resplendent 7-colored light. However, with a buzz, it turned into a pure icy blue. At the same time, what shocked the bloodthirsty direwolf was that although Chen Hao had stabbed out with sword chi, what he had actually stimulated was a huge shadow that was almost solid. When the shadow appeared, the air in the palace seemed to freeze. Even the speed of the Scarlet Crescent arc suddenly slowed down. The inheritance of the divine beast Black Tortoise? Boom. Just at the instant when the large wolf was shocked, the Black Tortoise shell forcefully blocked his crimson crescent moon. Chen Hao's wrist shook once again, and the Black Tortoise seal suddenly erupted with a tiger's roar that resounded through the heavens and the earth. Shortly after, an incomparably swift and fierce golden sword light tore through the air and pierced towards the large wolf's throat with a speed as fast as lightning, before the large wolf's old strength had been used and a new strength had yet to be formed. White Tiger Strike. The White Tiger Seal, which was the fiercest attack, was integrated into the sword light. Like a laser under the bloodthirsty direwolf's frightened eyes, it pierced through his throat. Even before his death, he did not expect that Chen Hao, who was only in the late Gold Core stage, would have the inheritance of 2 divine beasts. Even more so, he did not expect that Chen Hao could use such a strange method to display the ultimate attack of 2 divine beasts. Burn for me! His remaining soul consciousness allowed him to hear Chen Hao's cold shout. Immediately, his soul was enveloped by a scorching flame. Divine Beast Vermilion Bird. This was his last consciousness. He had been in the cultivation world for many years and had killed countless sect disciples. No matter what, he did not expect that he would die in the hands of a young man in the late Gold Core stage. Moreover, his soul would be destroyed. He did not expect that in a short time, he would see 3 divine beasts gathered in one body. This was something that seemed impossible to happen. Chapter 258. Phew. Compared to the 7-star alignment, the inheritance power of the 5 divine beasts is only 10% weaker. However, It is more flexible and can exert the power of attributes. It is more suitable for fighting. Chen Hao grabbed the storage ring of the bloodthirsty wolf and put it away. At the same time, he took out the middle-grade armor that he had just obtained. The armor was dark yellow in color, and the surface was engraved with fine black runes. It was faintly flowing and emitting a faint black light, like the inky wind in the cave. It carried a sharp aura and contained a trace of Hutu's aura. However, what made Chen Hao slightly surprised was that although the aura was very strong, the runes at the edge seemed to be broken, and the formation inside could not be operated at all. Chen Hao forced a wisp of blood essence into it and engraved his soul mark. With a thought, the armor turned into a stream of light and put it on Chen Hao's body. The information of the armor naturally appeared in Chen Hao's mind. Doomsday Battle Armor, one of the combination's spiritual equipment sets. No wonder it can't be used, it's the Doomsday Battle Armor. At this moment, Ito-ta, who was controlled by the mysterious existence, suddenly regained his freedom and said in Chen Hao's mind, "You know? Of course I know. If I didn't see this armor, I would have forgotten. I obtained 4 pieces in the past, but I didn't get the Doomsday Battle Armor. This is a set of spiritual equipment. Without one, it is useless. It is not much stronger than a low-grade spiritual equipment. Only when it is a set, the combination formation can be operated and its true power can be exerted. Master, take out my storage ring and look through it. In the corner, under a pile of ores, there is a low-grade storage ring." Ito does it. Hearing Ito-ta's words, Chen Hao hurriedly found Ito-ta's storage ring in the 5 elements ring. When Chen Hao obtained Ito-ta's storage ring, he did not check it carefully. Naturally, he was not interested in looking through the low-grade storage ring. A moment later, 4 pieces of equipment that were clearly part of the Armageddon armor set appeared before Chen Hao. After forcing out 4 streams of blood essence, the gauntlets, leggings, armor, and boots immediately transformed into streams of light that were worn on Chen Hao's body. The moment the 5 pieces of the set were assembled, streaks of earthy yellow-golden light rose from Chen Hao's body. Soon after, streaks of ink-like black smoke curled around his body, emitting an extremely powerful set aura. Doomsday Armor. It was a top-notch middle-grade spirit artifact armor, and its formation contained the Dark Wind Calamity technique. Dark Wind Calamity? Chen Hao was slightly taken aback. He was extremely familiar with this name as it was mentioned in the Taoist scripture. It was a branch of the Grand Calamity technique that was ranked at the top of the 3,000 Grand Daos, and its might was extremely great and contained unfathomable profundities. The Great Calamity art is one of the supreme Tao arts of the Heavenly Tao. It is composed of the 3 calamities and 9 disasters. The 3 calamities are Doomsday Calamity, Scorching Sun Fire, Dark Wind Calamity. The 9 disasters are Human Disaster, Earth Disaster, Demon God Disaster, Samadhi Disaster, Nature Disaster, Karma Disaster, Mind Disaster, Soul Disaster, and Tribulation Disaster. It contains the Heavenly Tao and can only be mastered by comprehending the supreme profundity of the creation and destruction of heaven and earth. The Dark Wind Calamity attached to this set of middle-grade treasured armor can only exert 1/10,000,000th of its power, which is already good enough. However, it is very useful for you now. It can be used as one of your trump cards. At this moment, the voice of the mysterious existence sounded in Chen Hao's mind. Chen Hao smiled slightly and was not frightened by the mysterious existence's so-called 1/10,000,000th of its power. Biting off more than one could chew would only hurt one's confidence. Retreating and forming a net, one step at a time, was the most practical. Chen Hao could feel that once the defense of the Doomsday Armor was activated, he could basically ignore the attacks of late-stage Golden Core experts. Even Fan Fong, who was half a step away from the nascent Soul Realm, would be able to reduce the damage done to him by at least 30%. If he had worn this treasured armor to fight Fan Fong, Chen Hao would have at most suffered light injuries. This was under the premise that he did not activate the Dark Wind Calamity contained in the treasured armor. With a thought, the Doomsday Armor separated from his body. Chen Hao quickly took off his outer clothes and put them on. After adjusting the armor to its most fitting state, he put on his outer clothes. Ding ding! Just as Chen Hao was about to leave, two crisp sounds rang out from the circular altar where the treasured armor was placed. Two pitch-black key-shaped tokens appeared on the altar. Are these the keys to the core palace? Chen Hao was slightly surprised. Strange. It usually appears at the last intersection, but it actually appeared so early. It seems that the higher one's strength is, the corresponding adjustments will be made. Master, put it away. If you can get the keys of the other 13 people, only you and Master. Chen Shui can open the core palace. Chen Hao replied and put away the two keys. He did not dare to waste any time and continued forward. Chen Shui was very strong. The obscure aura on her body made even Chen Hao unable to tell what level her true strength had reached. However, the power displayed by the bloodthirsty direwolf forced Chen Hao to re-evaluate the battle strength of the demon Dao. Especially the lone traveler who appeared at the last moment. Chen Hao was sure that guy was definitely stronger than Fan Fong. If Chen Shui encountered him, Chen Shui was still his elder sister after all. Kikik. While Chen Hao was killing the bloodthirsty direwolf, at another intersection thousands of miles away, the bodies of the three bloodthirsty direwolves turned into ghastly white bones amidst the sinister laughter of the handsome masked man. A demon Dao itinerant cultivator dares to be arrogant in front of me, Fujikawa. You really don't know what's good for you. After devouring these 15 people, except for that beautiful girl, my blood soul art will definitely advance to the peak of the 4th level. My battle strength will be comparable to the peak of the early stage nascent soul realm. Surviving the heavenly punishment will not be a problem. Coming to the cultivation world is indeed much faster than coming to the demon realm. Subduing that beautiful girl and bringing her back to the demon realm to be my concubine is not bad. There's no need to waste any more time. I'll just wait at the core area and devour them one by one. It'll save me a lot of effort. Fujikawa, half-step nascent soul realm, was a demon Dao sect disciple. If Itoda knew that the other party cultivated the blood soul art, he would definitely be shocked and envious. The blood soul art was an earth-level top-tier technique. It was one of the basic techniques of the demon Dao royal family's supreme technique, the great blood soul art. Once his cultivation level increased, once he obtained the cultivation method of the great blood soul art, he would be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. As soon as Fujikawa finished speaking, he turned into a bloody light and disappeared as fast as lightning. The closer they got to the core palace, the stronger the monsters were, and the number of monsters increased. Even if Chen Hao wanted to avoid them completely, it was impossible. Moreover, once the battle started, it would be continuous. They could only kill all the way and move forward. This situation directly led to the need to rest and recover after encountering the palace, even if they did not sense the aura of spiritual weapons and mineral veins. Chen Hao, who had abnormal physical strength and vigorous vital essence, was like this. The situation of the others was not much better. Even Chen Shui and the powerful Fujikawa were no exception. The level 4 cave dwellings seemed to adjust the combat power and number of monsters according to the individual's cultivation level, making it impossible for them to move faster. When the 20,000 miles became a gathering of 4 people, Chen Hao saw a Wind and Thunder sect disciple and a Wisdom King Valley disciple. When the two of them saw Chen Hao alone, they were slightly surprised. However, when they saw the speed at which Chen Hao hunted the demonic beasts, they, who originally harbored malicious intentions, did not dare to act rashly. Chen Hao ignored them and did not listen to Itoda's suggestion. If others did not offend him, he would not offend them. This was the principle he adhered to. He really could not blindly kill. However, if he encountered treasures and wanted to compete with him, then he would be sorry. In the beginning, the two of them were very wise. Moreover, the two of them were not in the same group. In the tripartite confrontation, it was obvious that Chen Hao was stronger. They could only watch Chen Hao take the lead and take the treasures. It was fine once or twice, but when they encountered a mid-grade spiritual weapon for the 4th time, the two of them were jealous. After communicating with each other, they decided to cooperate and kill Chen Hao, then divide the treasures on Chen Hao equally. In the end, they lost their lives for nothing. Chen Hao easily obtained 4 keys. At the 30,000 miles entrance, Chen Hao also did not encounter anyone. He did not know whether his speed was fast or the others were slow. Up until now, a full 4 days had passed, and there were only 10,000 miles left. Chen Hao didn't know, and he didn't expect it at all. Even Ito-ta didn't expect that Chen Hao, who was wearing the Doomsday armor, would encounter so many demon beasts that his combat power far exceeded that of others. Originally, with his strength, there would be no problem for him to arrive at the core palace in advance. However, because of the aura of the Doomsday armor, his speed was slower than some disciples who were much weaker than him. It's been half a day, why is there still no one? A graceful blue figure, standing in front of the entrance of a huge circular palace, thought in her heart. This palace was 3,000 feet in diameter and 5,000 feet in height. It was built with huge pieces of black crystal stones, exuding an ancient and vast aura. A layer of ink-like flowing light circulated around the palace. The gate of the palace was a rare circular shape. It was about 100 feet in diameter. It was completely composed of black iron concentrate. 16 grooves were evenly distributed on the gate, exuding a faint, mysterious aura. Chen Shui had been here for an entire day and only had one key in her hand. From beginning to end, perhaps because she was too fast, she did not encounter any cultivators. After arriving here, she waited for a full half a day, but still no one came. This made her feel very strange. Not to mention others, with Chen Hao's strength, how could he be so much slower than her? Could there be an accident? Chen Shui was a little worried. If he encountered other people, Chen Hao should not have any problems. However, if he encountered a masked demonic cultivator, it might be a little dangerous. Just as Chen Shui felt faintly uneasy and once again entered the narrow passage at the entrance of the core area, intending to turn back to take a look, a gloomy voice suddenly came from the other end of the narrow passage. "Little beauty, can't wait? There are only 4 left." What made Chen Shui frown was that the masked, seemingly elegant young man, at this moment, threw a shriveled cultivator on the ground and looked at her with a lustful expression. Chapter 259. Don't be afraid. A beautiful woman like you, as long as you serve me well, how can I, Fujikawa, bear to kill you? Someone's coming. Little beauty, go back inside and wait. Don't ruin my business. When I'm done killing, this core palace will be ours. I'll take good care of you. Boom. Along with Fujikawa's arrogant laughter, the disciple who had turned into a dried corpse in front of him was suddenly wrapped in a blue flame and turned into ashes in an instant. At the same time, Fujikawa's aura suddenly disappeared, and his entire person hid in a dark corner. Anyone who passed by here would have to suffer a terrifying blow from him. Fujikawa? He's actually Fujikawa? Chen Shui was shocked when she heard the other party's name. Fujikawa was the target of the Immortal Alliance's hunting mission since half a year ago. In just half a year, the bounty had risen again and again, from 100,000 low-grade primordial crystal stones to 3 million. His value was higher than some nascent soul realm devils. Because his combat strength was far from what an ordinary early nascent soul realm expert could compare to, and his concealment and escape skills were extremely high, and he was extremely cunning. Some nascent soul realm experts of the sex had fallen in his hands. Chen Shui immediately turned into a cool breeze, completely disappearing into the air. There are still 4 people, which means that he has already killed 10. Fortunately, it's not Chen Hao. Chen Shui's strong perception ability, in fact, before Fujikawa spoke, she had already sensed Chen Hao's unique aura. However, she did not immediately fly into a rage because she had no confidence in defeating Fujikawa. Little beauty, do you want to die? Get in obediently. Don't think that you can hide from my perception just because you've comprehended the spatial attribute. Otherwise, I'll kill you too. Fujikawa's expression did not change. He looked at the void as if he saw Chen Shui and said sinisterly, "Condense." As he spoke, he waved his hand and released a pure and majestic demonic aura that enveloped Chen Shui. Chen Shui was shocked. One had to know that at this moment, She was integrated into all things in the world. With such a concealment skill, she should not be sensed. Therefore, she did not take his words to heart, thinking that he was just bluffing. However, the attack that Fujikawa had clearly discovered her trajectory. How was this possible? Chen Shui did not know that Fujikawa, who cultivated the blood soul art, was not sensing Chen Shui's aura, but her blood soul. Merging with all things in the world, Chen Shui could easily conceal her aura in front of most cultivators of the same level or even cultivators 1 or 2 levels higher. However, as long as she did not disintegrate, her blood soul would exist and she would not be able to hide. Break! Chen Shui didn't dare hesitate any longer. With a shout, she swung her sword at the incoming terrifying energy. At the same time, she urged the laws of space, wanting to rush out and meet up with Chen Hao, who was approaching from 100 kilometers away. You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. Get out of here! Fujikawa's figure flashed and he no longer hid. He suddenly rushed to the middle of the long and narrow passage. The violent demon energy instantly condensed into blood-red sword light and blasted out in all directions. The scene before Chen Shui's eyes instantly turned blood-red as a group of demons danced about chaotically. This sort of scene was like falling into a mountain of corpses and an ocean of blood in the 9th level of hell, and it caused Chen Shui's mind to be slightly affected. If it wasn't for her soul and mental state that far exceeded an ordinary person, she would probably have directly lost herself within it. Thunderclap 9th heaven! Chen Shui shouted and cut off the opponent's mental attack. Her beautiful eyes flashed with lightning as bright as the stars. She didn't retreat or give way. The sword in her hand flashed with lightning arcs, and with a hum, she violently stabbed out. At the same time, she released 2 types of laws of heaven, space and lightning. In an instant, huge thunderbolts shot out from the sword. Hundreds of lightning arcs that contained terrifying energy struck the seemingly real mountain of corpses and ocean of blood. She's actually so strong? Chen Shui's move destroyed Fujikawa's bloodthirsty sword finger that contained a mental attack, which made Fujikawa slightly surprised. He had long sensed that this beautiful girl's obscure aura might not be simple. But in the end he still underestimated her a little. However, this made Fujikawa even more excited. Very good, very good. With such combat strength, you can rise to the position of my woman. If I don't let you see my true strength, it seems that I won't be able to tame you. You're here? Then let's go together. Just as Fujikawa was speaking, a stream of light flew over as fast as lightning. Although Fujikawa was slightly surprised by the speed, when he saw that Chen Hao was only in the late gold core stage, Fujikawa became even more excited. Chen Hao's vitality was definitely higher than the sum of the 2 or 3 guys just now. And now, in order to tame Chen Shui, he had to pay a little price and use his true ultimate move. In this way, it was naturally best to kill them together. Boom! Ow ow ow! Demon Dao Vital Essence, with the voice of Fujikawa, suddenly erupted and burned fiercely. Around his body, countless burning skulls condensed in an instant. The eye sockets of each skull spewed out blood-red light. Their mouths were wide open, their fangs bared, and they let out a terrifying howl that could confuse one's mind. As for Fujikawa, he was like a demon god that had walked out of Azura hell. The monstrous evil aura pressed down from the sky and earth. 1,000 feet radius was shrouded in a terrifying demonic aura. With a wave of his hand, he covered Chen Hao, who was rushing over quickly, and Chen Shui, who was in another direction. Domain! The moment she sensed this aura, even Chen Shui's face suddenly changed dramatically. Chen Hao, retreat! Chen Shui cried out in horror. In any case, she never thought that Fujikawa, who was only a half-step nascent soul realm, could condense a domain space. Domain space 1 in 10,000. Under normal circumstances, only the peak of the late nascent soul realm could stimulate the power of a domain space, and it was only a possibility. 1 in 1,000 peak of the late nascent soul realm would probably appear. The peak of the late nascent soul realm, 1 in 100 people would appear. As the cultivation realm increased, the probability of it appearing would gradually increase. All of these people were super geniuses. However, in the Golden Core realm, even if it was a half-step nascent soul realm, it was basically impossible to appear. Chen Shui was incomparably shocked in her heart. She, who was relatively close, simply had no time to dodge. The moment she shouted for Chen Hao to retreat, she clearly felt that not only was her mind greatly affected, but the true qi in her body was also greatly restricted under the power of this powerful domain. She was barely able to display 70% of her cultivation. This was the first time she had encountered such a dangerous situation. What made her even more frightened was that Chen Hao had no intention of listening at all. Moreover, it seemed that it was too late even if he listened. Condense for me. After the domain space with a radius of 10,000 feet enveloped Chen Hao and Chen Shui, Fujikawa laughed arrogantly. He opened his hands and slowly compressed them inwards, as if he was holding a 10,000 feet domain space with both hands. In an instant, it shrank rapidly. Fuck? What kind of power is this? When he was 100 miles away, Chen Hao had already sensed the aura of the battle between Chen Shui and Fujikawa. Chen Hao only knew that the masked guy was very strong, and Chen Shui should not be his opponent. Therefore, he used all his strength and rushed all the way. With the powerful defense of the Doomsday armor, he did not even care about the attacking monsters, fearing that Chen Shui would be in danger. When he was hundreds of feet away, he did not care about anything and violently attacked with his sword. Before he could figure out what was going on, he fell into Fujikawa's domain space. Domain space? Itota's voice appeared in Chen Hao's mind. Domain space? What is that? When Chen Hao stepped into the world of cultivation, he improved by leaps and bounds. Coupled with the fact that he did not pay much attention to the cultivation methods of the world of cultivation, his basic knowledge was far from enough and could not be compared to Chen Shui. Therefore, he did not know the concept of domain space at all. It's a kind of magical ability with the nature of potential. The more powerful it is, the easier it is to activate. It also has something to do with the bloodline inheritance. This guy must have the royal bloodline of the demon race. Under his domain, he is the absolute master. Anyone who is trapped in it will not be able to use 40% of their combat strength. I'm afraid you can only use 50% of your true essence and your mind will be affected. But his strength can be increased by 2 times. If you want to defeat him, you can shut up. The voice of the mysterious existence suddenly sounded, but Itota's voice was cut off. The speed of the communication of consciousness was only a spark of lightning. Chen Hao did not have the slightest objection to the mysterious existence interrupting Itota, because he knew that if he wanted to become a true powerhouse, he could only rely on himself. This was the training he had to go through. Chen Hao felt that he was uncontrollably gathered together with Chen Shui and stopped when they were 10 feet apart. The entire domain space also became only 100 feet in size. But at this moment, the suppression of Chen Hao and Chen Shui was even stronger. Just as Itota said, Chen Hao clearly felt that his true essence seemed to have solidified and became extremely heavy. Moreover, his mind was also affected to a certain extent. It seems that the heavens are really helping me. My domain space has been compressed to such an extent, but the two of you can still maintain your calm mind. It's really rare. This kind of soul force is enough to match the total of those trash just now. Little beauty, how is it? Have you seen my strength? If you give up resistance now and surrender, it's not too late. I, Fujikawa, have the royal bloodline of the devil race. Not to mention you, even an early nascent soul stage cultivator, or even a middle nascent soul stage cultivator, can only be killed by me. To be able to become my, Fujikawa's, woman is definitely a supreme honor. Don't think that I'm just a devil cultivator. I'm a disciple of a powerful sect in the devil realm. I just came to your cultivation world to play. I'll give you 3 breaths of time to consider. Either give up resistance and let me control you or die. I'll devour this kid first. What a majestic blood chi. Dream on. Chen Hao, I'll break his domain and you run away immediately. Run away? A small domain is not difficult for me. You watch me. Don't risk your life until the last moment. Chen Hao stared coldly at Chen Shui, who seemed to be going all out, and directly burst out curses. "So you too have an affair?" Hearing the words of the two people sacrificing themselves, Fujikawa's voice suddenly became colder. "Kid, die for me. There's no way to speed up the update during this period, so I can only save the manuscript. On the 11th, the whole family has to go to Chengdu to visit relatives. On the 12th of October, we have to go to Nanjing for a few days to attend the annual meeting of the publishing house. I really have no choice but to try my best to maintain the 2 chapters every day. The outbreak will only start after the middle of next month. I hope everyone understands. Thank you." Chapter 260. This blood-red tentacles strangely appeared in the domain space. They were like fast-growing vines that wrapped around Chen Hao from all directions. "Fuck off. Break for me." Boom. Chen Hao was already prepared. A raging black flame instantly erupted from his body, raising the power of the Doomsday armor to the limit. He took a step forward and slashed out with the 5-element sword. The resplendent 7-colored sword gleam carried a terrifying sword essence. Although Chen Hao could only use 50% of his true origin, the power, speed, and sharpness displayed at this moment were still shocking, causing the entire domain space to tremble violently. The vine-like blood-red tentacles were cut off with a crackling sound and collapsed upon contact. However, what made Chen Hao slightly shocked was that in such a short period of contact, he actually felt that his energy, blood, essence, and spirit seemed to have been devoured by the blood-red vines. This is really surprising. The late-stage Golden Elixir realm actually has such strength. Middle-grade combination treasure armor, middle-grade combination treasure sword, powerful soul force, majestic blood chi. It's a pity that I didn't cultivate the great possession technique. Otherwise, it wouldn't be bad to use it as my main body. However, under my domain, how can you block my blood soul arts? Blood soul technique? Chen Shui and Chen Hao were shocked at the same time. This time, Chen Hao finally did not need anyone to guide him, and he already knew. The blood soul technique. Not only did he see it in the summary of the Eastern continent, but it was also recorded in the Essentials of Taoism. It was a branch of the Great Blood Soul technique and was also the basic cultivation technique for cultivating the Great Blood Soul technique. Chen Shui, who was originally cursed by Chen Hao and still had hope, didn't hesitate at this moment. She suddenly bit open the tip of her tongue and spat out a mouthful of blood essence onto the spirit sword in her hand. A violent rumble sounded out, and an azure ball of light started to condense on the body of the sword at a shocking speed. Chen Shui clearly felt that the energy, essence, and spirit in her body were being crazily extracted at this moment. Chaotic lightning sword. It was the strongest attack that Chen Shui had cultivated after she comprehended the thunder attribute's true essence. Up until now, she had only cultivated to the 4th stage of the thunderclap 9th heaven. But now, under the pressure of Fujikawa, she had no choice but to forcefully use the 5th stage that completely exceeded her limit, heavenly thunder breaking the sky. Crack crack. Bitch, do you really want to die? Fujikawa didn't expect Chen Shui to unleash such a powerful force. He originally thought that Chen Shui wouldn't be able to cause any ripples in his domain, but at this moment, the ball of light that Chen Shui condensed on the sword made him feel a trace of danger. At the very least, his domain power alone was no longer enough to completely suppress it. Furthermore, the blue ball of light's energy was still gathering at a crazy rate. It had not completely exploded yet, but it had already shattered the countless vines he had sent out. He wasn't worried that Chen Shui and Chen Hao would be able to escape, but if he wanted to control Chen Shui, he would have to start devouring and destroying her. It would be a waste to devour such a peerless beauty just like that, but it seemed that this was the only way now. Just as Fujikawa was determined to start devouring Chen Shui, who didn't know what was good for her, something that made him a little dumbfounded happened. At this moment, Chen Hao actually swung his sword and cut off a countless number of blood-red tentacles. He arrived in front of Chen Shui in a natural and smooth manner. A palm slammed onto Chen Shui's head. Immediately, he hugged the unconscious Chen Shui and swiftly retreated. Boom! After losing Qin Shue's control, the ball of light that was filled with endless thunder and lightning exploded, causing the domain space to shake violently. Countless blood-red tentacles turned into dust. However, it didn't break the domain space. Obviously, the power that Qin Shui had gathered was far from enough. Similarly, without Qin Shue's control, it couldn't unleash its true power. Kid, a wise man submits to circumstances. Since you've helped me so much, then I'll let you die quickly. Don't worry, I won't let you suffer any pain. Fujikawa's blood-red eyes had a hint of excitement as he said with a sinister smile. No matter what, he would never have thought that Chen Hao, who seemed to have an affair with Qin Shui just now, would actually betray him under the threat of death and help him stop Qin Shui's desperate attack. This was undoubtedly a great help to him. At least, he would be able to obtain the stunning beauty who had fainted. He naturally thought that Chen Hao did this in order to let him go. However, to him, knowing how to repay a debt of gratitude was nothing but bullshit. At most, he would let Chen Hao die quickly. Chen Hao was slightly stunned. Wasn't this too much of a narcissist? Can't you spare my life? Immediately, Chen Hao stared at Fujikawa, who was standing proudly, and said, "You can only blame your vitality and soul for being too tempting. If you were like those few pieces of trash, I might have really spared your life. Don't worry, I'll let you die happily as long as you don't resist." "All right," Chen Hao said as if he was in despair. After saying that, he slowly closed his eyes, as if he had really given up resisting. "Very good." Fujikawa looked at Chen Hao approvingly and said, "Hiss." Blood-red tentacles once again wrapped around Chen Hao. However, it was at this moment that Chen Hao's closed eyes opened once again. There was no dazzling light in them, only simple, unadorned, as kind as water, unmoved by favor or disgrace. "Break for me." Rumble. When the blood-red tentacles were about to reach Chen Hao's eyes, the sword in Chen Hao's hand did not release any true yuan. There was only a buzzing vibration. There was no sword light. There was only an incomparably sharp slash. At this moment, Chen Hao looked relaxed. In fact, his mind was restrained to the extreme. Every trace of vitality seemed to be wrapped in his body, circulating endlessly. However, it was limited to the sword and his body. There was not a trace of it leaking out. At the same time, Chen Hao's powerful soul force was also limited to his body and sword. At this moment, his vitality, energy, and soul were like a sealed container. Only his body was strong. This was the only way Chen Hao could resist the blood-soul tactics. Chen Hao was not like Qin Shui, who only knew the horror of the blood-soul tactics. He was clear about the cultivation method and the mystery of the blood-soul tactics. Chen Hao also had the supernatural power that could resist the blood-soul tactics. It was just that he was pressed for time and did not have the time to cultivate it. Otherwise, Chen Hao would not use the most primitive but easiest way to deal with Fujikawa's devouring. However, Chen Hao believed that even Itoda, who was at the peak of the late nascent soul stage and had devoured countless souls, was not as good as him in terms of soul force, let alone Fujikawa, who was only half a step away from the nascent soul stage. With Chen Hao's current soul force and the true yuan of the golden core stage, his control was far beyond that of an ordinary late golden core stage cultivator. As long as he restrained enough and did not leak any of his power, the other party would not be able to devour him. This was indeed the case. How is this possible? The sudden change made Fujikawa, who thought that Chen Hao had accepted his fate, unable to react. What surprised him even more was that when Chen Hao cut off his devouring tentacles, he could not devour a trace of qi, blood, and energy. While Fujikawa was surprised and angry, Chen Hao was also slightly surprised. His original intention was to stop the other party from devouring his qi, blood, and energy. However, he did not expect that after completely containing his essence, qi, and spirit, and purely strengthening himself and the treasured sword, he was surprised to find that the suppression he suffered in the domain space had completely disappeared. The true yuan in his dantian could not feel any suppression. The domain space is a space that contains soul force and mental force alone. Although I am now in the space, my own aura is completely cut off from the domain space, forming a world of its own. It must be so. Chen Hao's mind raced and he instantly understood what was going on. Kid, you are courting death. So what if you know how to resist my blood-soul art? After a brief shock, Fujikawa shouted sternly, die. Chen Hao was able to resist the devouring of his blood-soul art in such a way, which indeed shocked him, but it was only shock. In the domain space, his strength could be doubled. So what if Chen Hao was a little late golden core stage cultivator? One blow to kill. As long as Chen Hao was seriously injured or killed, it would be faster for him to directly approach and devour. With the word die, Fujikawa threw a punch at Chen Hao. Boom, boom, boom. Countless fist shadows spread out and bombarded Chen Hao from all directions in the domain space. Looking at the dense fist shadows that were filled with terrifying energy, Chen Hao was not afraid at all. With one hand holding Chen Shui, who was warm and fragrant, in the other hand holding the sword, he drew a circle in front of him that seemed to be slow but was actually fast. This brand new method of using energy to strengthen one's own furnace made Chen Hao feel an unprecedented strength that came from his own body. He was not in a hurry to use his ultimate move. Instead, he treated Fujikawa as his training target. Ding ding ding, boom boom boom. The five elements sword actually cut off the terrifying fist shadows that were close to Chen Hao. Accompanied by the sound of metal clashing and a terrifying explosion, Chen Hao's figure was as tall as a mountain and as straight as a sword. The five-element sword, which was like a full moon, protected him and Chen Shui so that not even a drop of water could leak out. The raging explosive energy was unable to enter at all. Under the urging of Chen Hao's mind, Chen Shui slowly woke up. In an instant, she was clear about her own situation. She had forcefully activated the 5th level of the chaotic lightning sword, sky-piercing thunder. Originally, she would have to bear a huge backlash. Even if she could break through Fujikawa's domain, she would be seriously injured. Whether she could escape or not was still uncertain. But she could only do that. Unless it was really an irreversible situation, she would not make any calls for help. In fact, she was risking her life, but definitely not risking her life like Chen Hao wanted. It was just that she did not expect Chen Hao to actually stop her. Are your injuries serious? If not, restrain your aura. Don't let your strength and mind leak out. Only strengthen yourself. You will be pleasantly surprised. Accompanied by the terrifying explosion, Chen Hao's voice drilled into Chen Shui's ears. Faced with Fujikawa's increasingly powerful attacks, Chen Hao hugged Chen Shui and could not really unleash his full strength. If Chen Shui could defend herself, it would undoubtedly allow him to fight to his heart's content. Because, at this moment, Fujikawa was far more powerful than Chen Hao. His strength was more than twice that of Fan Fong. Even if Chen Hao used his ultimate move, he might not be able to kill him in one blow. There might even be a loophole and he would not be able to take care of the unconscious Chen Shui. If that was really the case, Chen Shui, who did not have any protection, would probably be directly shattered into pieces by the terrifying energy. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Chapter 261. Let me try first. Seeing that Chen Hao was still transmitting his voice to her while dealing with Fujikawa's terrifying attack, Chen Shui did not dare to think too much and transmitted her voice to him. She immediately did as Chen Hao said. However, she still let Chen Hao hold her and did not move as if she was still unconscious. How can this kid's strength be so terrifying? Even among the super geniuses of the rank 8 and rank 9 sects, there are very few who have such combat strength. Could it be that he used some secret technique? The more Fujikawa fought, the more shocked he was. He had been in the cultivation world for almost a year, especially in the past 6 months. Due to the continuous increase of the bounty, the disciples of the sects who were hunting him were getting stronger and stronger. He had even met a few super geniuses of the rank 8 sects. However, in his domain space, no one could be like Chen Hao. At this moment, something happened that made Fujikawa frown even more. Chen Shui, who was unconscious, suddenly disappeared from Chen Hao's arms strangely, as if she had torn the void apart. Oh no! Fujikawa sensed Qin Shui's qi and blood that had integrated into the space law and felt slightly uneasy. It was not that he was afraid of Qin Shui, but that Chen Hao was holding Qin Shui and his combat strength was affected to a certain extent. However, Qin Shui woke up and there was no leakage of energy. This meant that Qin Shui also had the ability to resist his blood-soul tactics. Chen Hao alone had already made him unable to fight for a long time. What if Qin Shui joined in? He was afraid that the domain space would be destroyed by the two of them. Once the domain space was destroyed, not only would Fujikawa be severely injured, but Chen Hao and Qin Shui would also be released and unleash their true combat strength. Then, it would be impossible for him to fight against them. Thunderclap Ninth Heaven. Bang. It was the same sword move, and it was under the situation where Qin Shui had consumed nearly half of her strength. However, at this moment, using the method that Chen Hao said, she completely used her body as a cauldron and did not allow any energy to leak out. However, she displayed energy that was not suppressed by the domain space. This surprised Qin Shui. Buzz. The domain space shook violently. Chen Hao was not surprised to see that Qin Shui was able to comprehend his fighting style in a moment. In fact, Chen Hao was also clear that other than Qin Shui, the others would not be able to do it even if they were given a few months to cultivate, let alone such a short time. This was because it required an extremely powerful soul force and control. As for Qin Shui, in terms of soul power, she was definitely not much weaker than him. This could be seen when facing Fujikawa's mental attack. You focus on bombarding the domain's spatial barrier. I'll deal with him. Chen Hao said. Yes. Good. You two puny golden core realm cultivators can actually force me, Fujikawa, to such an extent. It's enough for you to be proud. It's all because of you, bitch. If I wasn't greedy for your beauty, I would have sucked you dry long ago and wouldn't be in such a sorry state. I will let you know the true power of my domain space. Die all of you. Fujikawa did not dare to hesitate at this moment. He knew that once he did so, whether it was Chen Hao or Qin Shui, he would not be able to devour them at all. Not only would he die without leaving any residue, but he would also be seriously injured. However, if he did not do so, he would be the one to die after the two of them broke through the domain space. Now, the only thing he could do was to risk his life. He would lose 800 of his own men and 1,000 of his enemies. Anyway, there was no one else in this level 4 cave abode. Even if he was seriously injured, as long as he entered the cave abode's core palace to cultivate in seclusion, he would be able to recover. Be careful! Chen Hao and Qin Shui exclaimed at the same time. In the instant that Fujikawa raised his head to the sky and let out a long howl, he actually gave up on attacking Chen Hao. The energy around him was unrestrained and completely integrated into the domain space. In an instant, the entire domain space started to shrink once again. This sudden change was so sudden that even Chen Hao and Qin Shui could not adapt to its rhythm. Once again, they felt that the vital essence in their bodies was slightly suppressed. Feeling the great danger, Chen Hao did not dare to continue fighting. His figure was as fast as lightning as he grabbed Qin Shui with one hand. At the same time, the vital essence in his body was crazily injected into the doomsday armor. A pitch-black light bloomed like a black hurricane, protecting him and Qin Shui within it. Dark wind disaster, break for me. Domain self-destruct, die. Rumble. An earth-shattering explosion suddenly sounded. The domain space, which had been compressed to only a few hundred feet in radius, directly exploded. The terrifying energy instantly destroyed the long and narrow passage. The mountains collapsed and the earth cracked, and the cave ceiling pressed down. Two streams of light shot toward the core palace at a speed that tore through the void. Wherever they passed, the caves collapsed and were filled. The first stream of light to rush into the core palace area was Fujikawa. A huge black gold shield had appeared in his hand at some point in time. The shield was covered with blood-red runes and emitted a blood-red light. It contained an extremely powerful demonic power that protected his body. But even so, Fujikawa was bleeding from his 7 orifices. He fell heavily from the void onto the solid ground. It was not until he hit the huge palace that he rebounded 1,000 feet away and stopped. He lay motionless on the ground. Obviously, the heavy injuries he suffered were completely beyond his expectations. The other stream of light that was as black as ink was Chen Hao and Chen Shui. The two of them had also lost control. Like Fujikawa, they hugged each other and rolled and hit the palace. They fell to the ground and were also motionless. How is this possible? The self-destruction of my domain did not destroy them. Fujikawa, who had been relieved, was extremely shocked when he saw Chen Hao and Chen Shui tumbling and falling from above him. He really could not imagine how the two of them could withstand the power of the self-destruction of the domain. Not to mention them, even a mid-nascent soul realm expert would probably be blown to pieces. Recover, recover. I have to recover as quickly as possible and kill them. Otherwise, I will be the one who dies. I have the royal bloodline of the Devil Clan. My recovery speed will definitely be much faster than theirs. No, there is no need to kill them. Since they have not been turned into powder, I can completely devour them while they are seriously injured. Heaven is helping me. Although Fujikawa could not summon any strength at this moment, his mind was still sensing. He could clearly sense that Chen Hao and Chen Shui's aura were weaker than his and their injuries were more serious. It was impossible to recover in a short period of time. This made him forget the intense pain in his body. He was abnormally excited. However, just as he was about to close his eyes and start healing, his expression suddenly became sluggish. How is this possible? Fujikawa felt boundless fear. After Chen Shui and Chen Hao rolled on the ground, they were separated by several feet. Both of them were bleeding from their 7 orifices, especially Chen Shui. If it were not for the support of her strong mind, she would have long fallen into a coma with such a huge injury. Quick, heal. Chen Shui was very clear that what they needed to fight for now was time. Whoever recovered first would be able to survive. Therefore, when she saw Chen Hao looking at her, she hurriedly said. However, before she could say the word injury, what surprised her was that Chen Hao actually propped himself up. A large number of healing pills flew into his mouth as he walked step by step towards Fujikawa, who was 1,000 feet away. The distance of 1,000 feet could originally be covered in the blink of an eye. But now Chen Hao was swaying. His speed was not even comparable to a 3-year-old child's. But it was just like this that made Fujikawa's heart break. Don't come over. If you dare to kill me, you will not be able to escape the pursuit of the Devil Emperor's bloodline and the Blood Demon sect. Your sect, your family, every single one of them will die. Fujikawa felt the true threat of death. His expression was ferocious as he unleashed the last of his strength and threatened Chen Hao. Those who said that to me are all dead. You will not be an exception. Chen Hao's originally swaying figure became more and more stable. His abnormal recovery abilities surprised Chen Shui, and Fujikawa, on the other hand, was in despair. Die. Fujikawa still wanted to say something, but Chen Hao did not give him another chance. A cold blade light appeared strangely. At the same time, Chen Hao's already weak aura completely disappeared. A moment later, amidst Fujikawa's screams, flesh and blood flew everywhere. Except for the masked head, he was brutally dismembered by Chen Hao. Until there was no trace of life, Chen Hao fell to the ground with a plop and let out a long sigh. 11 keys. The others all died in this guy's hands. 15 minutes later, Chen Hao stood up again and put away Fujikawa's storage ring. He picked up the 11 keys that had fallen beside his body. His mask is a treasure. Don't destroy his head. You can receive a reward, Xia Shui, who had only recovered a little strength and was unable to stand up, said to Chen Hao. Okay. Chen Hao responded and reached out his hand to wipe Fujikawa's face. Immediately, a thin mask that looked like human skin appeared in his hand. He forced out a wisp of blood essence and merged his mind into it. Immediately, he felt a mysterious aura. It is indeed a good treasure. Hiss. In an instant, the mask was on Chen Hao's face. Hee. Chen Hao let out a sinister sneer at Chen Shui. Disgusting. Hurry up and change it. Chen Shui was hidden under the veil. Her pale and beautiful face revealed a smile as she scolded Chen Hao. Take out the key. Let's go in and heal. Chen Hao put Fujikawa's terrifying demon-like face into a low-level storage ring. After putting it away, he also took off his mask and carried Chen Shui without any restraint. Chen Shui's delicate body trembled slightly, but she did not struggle. Only under the black veil, her pale face frowned slightly. Since she was born, no man had been able to have such intimate contact with her. When she was being carried by Chen Hao in the battle just now, she had no time to think about anything. But now, it was different. The 16 keys gathered together and turned into a stream of light, sinking into the 16 grooves on the palace gate at the same time. At the moment of sinking into the grooves, the circular gate suddenly shone with an incomparably bright light. After a rotation, the palace gate rumbled open. Chen Hao carried Chen Shui and stepped in. Chapter 262. The moment they stepped into the palace, Chen Hao and Chen Shui were shocked. From the outside, the core palace was already ridiculously large, with a diameter of 3,000 feet and a height of 5,000 feet. However, after entering, there was actually a completely different world. It was as if they had entered another world. The two appeared on the top of a towering mountain. The top of the mountain was circular, with a diameter of 9,000 feet. Just this alone was 3 times larger than the palace outside. They couldn't see the top of the mountain. There were only clouds as black as ink floating gently in the sky. They couldn't see the end of the mountain and didn't know how big it was. At least with their powerful senses, they couldn't detect the end of the mountain. The surface of the mountain was flat and smooth, as if it had been cut in half by a powerful expert. At the core, there was a strange building that was circular like a yurt. It was only 15 feet in diameter, and its surface was covered with fine runes. Chen Hao and Chen Shui appeared at the edge of the mountain. Dark clouds rolled downwards, and the depth was unknown. Even though the two of them had strong minds, they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air when they looked downwards. Their minds had only extended downwards for 1,000 feet, and they felt an irresistible and terrifying pressure. At this moment, the runes on the odd-shaped building at the core suddenly began to move slowly. A faint milky white light floated out and shone on the two. In just an instant, the two of them felt that this milky white light was a kind of extremely pure and gentle energy, and it naturally merged into their bodies. Immediately, they clearly felt that their essence, energy, and spirit were recovering at an astonishing speed. The true essence of the light attribute? Chen Hao and Chen Shui were shocked at the same time. At their level, they could more or less control the energy of the 5 elements, but it was impossible to control the true essence of all attributes. This faint milky white light was definitely not just the pure light attribute energy, but the ultimate of light, the true essence, and the law of light. And it was definitely not the elementary category of the true essence. Otherwise, it was absolutely impossible to have such a magical function. The 4th level cave is so powerful. Chen Hao let me down. Chen Shui, who originally didn't have any strength, regained the strength to move in just a breath. Even though there was still no energy in his dantian and his body was still heavily injured, the recovery of his essence, energy, and spirit allowed him to have the most basic physical strength. Moreover, the injuries in his body were also quickly recovering. Let's go in and take a look. Hearing Chen Shui's words, Chen Hao hurriedly put down the soft and graceful body in his arms. He held Chen Shui's little hand and walked towards the oddly shaped building. As the two of them gradually approached, the milky white light became thicker and thicker. Their recovery speed also became faster and faster. Chen Hao, in particular, already had an abnormal recovery ability. After just a few thousand feet, the extremely serious injuries on his body were completely healed. What he lacked was true essence. When the two of them seemed to be strolling hand in hand and traversed 4,500 feet to arrive before the oddly shaped building, even the heavy injuries on Chen Shui's body had completely recovered. When the two of them had a tacit understanding and stretched out their hands to touch the odd-shaped building at the same time, an unexpected change occurred. The talisman markings on the building instantly emitted an even more resplendent light. It shook violently for a moment before Chen Hao and Chen Shui disappeared on the spot and entered the building. This was a world of light. The milky white light was so thick that it seemed to have condensed into a liquid state. It floated around the two of them, and the mystery of the true essence of the light attribute filled it. What was emitting this milky white light was a white round crystal with a diameter of 1 meter in front of them. What is this thing? Chen Shui opened her little mouth in surprise and asked in astonishment. It doesn't matter what it is. The most important thing is to quickly start cultivating. This thing contains pure light attribute energy and has already begun to activate. I don't know how long it will last. I just happen to need to go into seclusion. Oh. The two of them exchanged a glance. Chen Hao's figure flashed and he appeared on the other side of the sphere. He sat down cross-legged and immersed himself in cultivation. Chen Shui took a deep breath. She did not dare to waste precious time and was instantly immersed in the mysterious light. There was no doubt that this was an excellent environment to comprehend the true essence of the light attribute. Whether or not one could comprehend it depended on oneself. 7 days later, the milky white light began to weaken slowly. In less than 4 hours, the white crystal sphere cracked and turned into fine powder. Chen Hao and Chen Shui did not come out of their cultivation state. Their bodies were shining with a faint milky white light, and a holy and transcendent aura enveloped them. The exposed skin of the two of them seemed to have turned into glowing crystals. They were sparkling and translucent, and one could clearly see the flowing light within. After 3 days, the light around Chen Shui dissipated. She let out a long sigh and opened her eyes. Phew! I've successfully comprehended the true essence of the light attribute. Unfortunately, compared to the aura of the crystal sphere, my comprehension is still superficial. It seems that any kind of law of heaven and earth is not so simple. Chen Shui felt the surging power in her body and thought to herself. She looked at Chen Hao. Ah! The moment she saw Chen Hao, Chen Shui's eyes widened in surprise. Although she did not dare to use her mind to investigate for fear of affecting Chen Hao, at this moment, the rich light attribute energy contained in Chen Hao's body shocked Chen Shui. One must know that the crystal sphere had been broken for 3 days. The light attribute energy that had fused into his body should have been almost completely depleted. But the light attribute energy in Chen Hao's body was several times more powerful than Chen Shui's at her peak. How can it be so much more powerful than mine? It shouldn't be. I'm already at the late gold core stage. Although my body is not as strong as his, the gap should not be so big. Could it be that he has comprehended more than me? Chen Shui stared at Chen Hao in surprise and thought to herself. I'm always defeated by him. Next time, I'll definitely be stronger than him. Chen Shui looked at Chen Hao's handsome face and said while biting her lips. Because her mother had been sealed in her womb for hundreds of years, her innate soul power was 10 times or even 100 times more powerful than ordinary people. It was also because of this that her comprehension and talent were not comparable to people of the same age. In the past, she did not know all of this. She only knew that it was easy for her to cultivate any cultivation technique, including the comprehension of the laws of heaven and earth. She had too many advantages over ordinary people. No one of the same age could compare to her. But this time, she entered the cave at the same time as Chen Hao. Not only was her combat power not as good as Chen Hao's, but she also lost in comprehension. The corner of Chen Shui's mouth twitched slightly. She stared at Chen Hao and immediately revealed a smile. Although she was a little shocked, she was actually a little happy in her heart. When the crystal sphere broke, the odd-shaped building also disappeared at the same time. Standing up quietly, Chen Shui walked to the top of the mountain far away. This is the exit. Chen Shui came in front of a whirlpool that seemed to be the entrance of every floor of the ancient Black Wind Cave and said softly, "Let's wait for him together." It shouldn't take long. Chen Shui looked at the slightly tattered blue dress on her body and frowned slightly. Immediately, she took out her sword and merged with everything in the world. Quietly, she dug a cave on the flat top of the mountain and went in, quickly taking off her clothes. Her lithe and exquisite body was fully exposed. Although there wasn't any dirt on her body, Chen Shui still took out a container of clean water from her storage ring and splashed it all over her body. Only when she felt clean in her heart did she use her energy to dry her hair and quickly put on a new set of clothes. She was still wearing her blue dress. Without a veil, any man who saw her would have their heart shaken, especially since she had comprehended the true essence of the light attribute. At this moment, the aura around her body had undergone a subtle change. It carried a trace of holiness and was even more indescribable. Wearing her veil, Chen Shui stepped out of the cave and sat cross-legged far away from Chen Hao, also entering a state of cultivation. "Senior brother Lu, you're finally here. You're the only one left. Is the news true or false?" Of course it's true. Many groups of people have already gone. Even the super geniuses of the 4 great 9th rank sects have gone. This time, the Black Wind Ancient Cave will be lively. However, no one has found the Red Flame Beast yet. We still have a chance. Alright, then let's go immediately. It's naturally best if we can get the Red Flame Beast. If not, it's also good to see the super geniuses of the 9th rank sects. That's right. Senior brother Lu, you're not inferior to the super geniuses of the 9th rank sections. A year later, it'll be the intersect competition that's held once every 10 years. With senior brother Lu's combat strength, you'll definitely shine at that time. Compared to the top 10 geniuses of the 10 great sects, I'm still a little inferior. However, I'm confident that I can fight a year later. On the other hand, you guys should work hard and strive to enter the nascent soul stage as soon as possible. It's good to be able to see the world. I heard that there's a real genius in the sword riding sect. The disciple called Senior Brother Lu exuded a valiant aura. It was obvious that he was at the peak of the advanced nascent soul stage. That kid's called Chen Hao. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's said that he's only at the advanced golden core stage, but he killed the super genius of the sword riding sect, Fan Fong. If it's true, this kid might be able to enter the nascent soul stage before the intersect competition. I'm afraid the sword riding sect won't let him go, right? Senior brother Lu smiled lightly. Senior brother Lu, the sword riding sect won't dare to act recklessly. Chen Hao and Fan Fong had a fair fight. Moreover, it said that Chen Hao saved the direct descendant of the sect leader of the Ling Tian sect, Xia Lanlan, and the super genius, Duan Yufei, from the hands of the Red Flame Beast in the ancient Black Wind Cave. Therefore, the young master of the Ling Tian sect, Xia Nantian, spread the news that if the sword-riding sect dares to break the rules, the Ling Tian sect will intervene. Chapter 263. The main reason why Xia Nantian spread the news was that he could not stand Xia Yuyu's pestering. Of course, he also got permission from the sect leader, Xia Lingfeng, who was also his grandfather. The truth was just as the rumors said. A super genius like Chen Hao had attracted the attention of the Ling Tian sect. Back then, Xia Lingfeng stopped Xia Yutong from killing Chen Hao because he thought of this possibility. Of course, the most important reason was still Xia Yuyu. It had been more than 2 years. He thought that time would fade away the encounter between Xia Yuyu and Chen Hao. However, now, no matter how he looked at it, Chen Hao had become a knot in Xia Yuyu's heart. Xia Lanlan thought that Xia Yuyu could not forget Chen Hao because she did not come into contact with other super genius disciples. However, Xia Lingfeng knew that the mental cultivation method that Xia Yuyu cultivated contained the heartless Tao. Now that she had advanced to the peak of the advanced nascent soul stage, she still could not forget him. What did that mean? Otherwise, based on Chen Hao's performance, Xia Lingfeng would not have allowed Xia Nantian to spread the news. Unfortunately, Xia Lingfeng did not understand Chen Hao's character. Phew! Chen Hao's body shone with a faint green light. He let out a long breath and woke up from his cultivation state. It's been 2 months. It's obviously impossible to become a fatty in one bite on the cultivation path. With my current combat strength, I have nothing to fear if I meet Fujikawa again. I should be able to fight an early nascent soul stage expert, right? Chen Hao thought to himself. After Chen Hao finished refining the light attribute energy, Chen Shui knew that Chen Hao was going to cultivate in seclusion here, so she left first. As for Chen Hao, he cultivated in seclusion here for 2 whole months. The battle with Fujikawa made Chen Hao realize that he had to start cultivating the Taoist scripture's secret. If he did not coincidentally obtain the Doomsday armor set and cast the Dark Wind disaster at the last moment, a small blood soul technique and territory space would have taken his life. He would not be so lucky every time he encountered a powerful divine ability in the future. However, the cultivation techniques recorded in the Taoist canon were too profound for Chen Hao. He'd tried countless of them with his current cultivation level, yet he was utterly unable to comprehend their profundities. He understood the literal meaning and knew the cultivation method, but every time he cultivated, it would end in him vomiting blood. His realm was too low. Fortunately, the mysterious existence in his mind told him to try the Great 5 Elements art when he was about to give up after trying more than 30 types. The Major 5 Elements art was a supreme technique ranked in the top 10 of the 3,000 Great Tao. Chen Hao's attempts were ranked last. He had no intention of trying the Major 5 Elements art at all. However, it had to be said that the mysterious existence's knowledge was far beyond Chen Hao's. The Great 5 Elements art had a total of 5 basic techniques: Greenwood Emperor art, Heavenly Fire Sun Fist, Platinum Sky Splitting Slash, Black Water Sovereign Palm, and Earth Mountain Jumping art. Only by cultivating the 5 basic cultivation methods to the extreme could one be considered to have mastered the Taoist scripture. Only when one truly comprehended its profundity could one unleash its true power. According to the words of the mysterious existence, Chen Hao chose the Platinum Sky Splitting Slash, which had the most murderous aura among the 5 basic cultivation methods of the Great 5 Elements art. Although the cultivation process was also unbearably painful, but at least he could cultivate it. After 2 months, Chen Hao finally completed the first level of the Platinum Sky Piercing Slash. Due to the restriction of his realm, he could only use it 3 times before exhausting all his energy. Barely. It's already not bad for you to be able to do this. The Taoist scripture's secret records are all supreme techniques. Only the basic cultivation method of the Taoist scripture can be cultivated at the Golden Elixir realm. But it can only be used as a trump card. Unless it's a last resort, don't use it. Otherwise, it will exhaust your energy in 2 or 3 moves and you will die, the mysterious existence said. What realm do I have to reach before I can use it freely? Chen Hao could not help but ask. You have to be at least at the primordial soul realm before you can use it normally. The 3,000 Great Taos are the true Great Taos that connect the universe. As your cultivation base increases, you will realize that it will become stronger and stronger. But what? Forget it. I can't interfere too much with you. There are some things that I can't tell you for the time being. I don't want to affect your state of mind. My previous masters grew much faster than you under my interference. But in the end, it was proven that I was wrong. Instead, it became their shackles and shackles. Hiss, hiss, hiss. At noon on the 2nd day, the transportation formation at the entrance of the Black Wind Ancient Cave in the Heavenly Armament Pavilion shone brightly. One by one, cultivators walked out of the transportation formation one after another. Damn it. I worked for more than a month for nothing. Let's go to Black Iron City to vent our anger. That's enough, old third. What's there to be depressed about? Those sect experts should be even more depressed. They didn't even get the incarnation stage experts, let alone us. This Crimson Flame beast is really terrifying. Ling Tiansec's Xia Yuyu is worthy of being called the super genius young lady in the Eastern continent. We can't compare to her. Exactly. I've never heard of anyone who dared to trigger the heavenly punishment in a battle. Moreover, she destroyed the heavenly punishment with a single strike. It's really unbelievable. Yes, Xia Yuyu is only 19 years old and has already stepped into the incarnation stage. It's definitely not a problem for her to get into the top 3 in this year's sect exchange competition. Moreover, she'll only be 29 years old in the next competition. Who can stop her at that time? Ling Tian sect is ranked 6th among the top 10 grade 9 sections. This time, just because of Xia Yu, I'm afraid they'll rise by 2 ranks. That's not necessarily true. Xia Yu did catch up later, but Origin Gate's Chu Qing Tian, Sky Sword Sect's Wu Ruochen, and Misty Palace's Lone Star reached the peak of the mastery stage of the nascent soul stage earlier than Xia Yu. They just accumulated strength and didn't trigger the heavenly punishment. For Xia Yu to advance so quickly, she definitely doesn't have a solid foundation like them. Her combat strength should be inferior. Moreover, there are probably many powerful and young super geniuses from the previous competition. Therefore, not to mention the top 3, even the top 10 is not bad. How's that possible? Don't forget that Xia Yu obtained the Crimson Flame Beast's undying blood essence. With her innate talent, she'll definitely be able to comprehend the profundity of the undying body. At that time, how strong will she be? An ordinary-looking figure was mixed in the crowd. He frowned slightly as he listened to the discussions of the cultivators who walked out of the transportation formation. Many of these people were experts at the peak of the mastery stage of the nascent soul stage. Their auras were extremely powerful. You actually advanced to the incarnation stage. Is the decennial sect exchange competition a year later? This figure was none other than Chen Hao, who had used the transportation talisman to come out. Chen Hao had read about the sect exchange competition in the sect's information. It was held once every 10 years. Only the core disciples of the sect and genius disciples below the age of 40 could participate. In any sect, regardless of grade, the condition to become a core disciple must be at the nascent soul stage. However, those above the age of 40 could no longer participate. Otherwise, it would not be able to test the new strength of the sect. The sect exchange competition was also a reference for the sect's grade and ranking. Being able to obtain good results could not directly increase the sect's grade. However, it could win providence for oneself and the sect. In fact, it was also a battlefield for the various sects to fight for providence. I must participate in the sect exchange competition. Chen Hao's heart was instantly filled with a myriad of emotions. In this exciting world where martial strength was supreme, the arrogant him was never afraid of competition. Only competition could make his goal clearer and allow him to work tirelessly for it. Moreover, he had already given up on the dragon transformation list. This time, he could not miss the clash between the true super geniuses of the sect. 2 years was already too long, let alone 10 years? Taking a deep breath, Chen Hao turned into a ray of light and quickly flew in the direction of Black Iron City. Chen Hao? Just as Chen Hao flew a distance away, a familiar voice suddenly floated into his ears from behind. Chen Hao was slightly taken aback. How did she recognize him? Chen Hao did not reply. Instead, he turned around and looked at the person who had just arrived. The person who had just arrived was none other than Yi Feishue and a few inner disciples of the star-picking sect. Sorry, I got the wrong person. When Yi Feishue saw Chen Hao's face, she was slightly taken aback and said apologetically, "It's all right." Chen Hao changed his voice and said with a slight smile. At this moment, Chen Hao was wearing the 1,000 illusion mask that he had obtained from Fujikawa. If it was only Yi Feishue, he would have recognized her. However, there were a few disciples that he did not recognize. Hence, just in case, Chen Hao could only say this. At the same time, he transmitted his voice to Yi Feishue. "Senior sister, how did you recognize me?" Yi Feishue was slightly taken aback. Then she replied calmly, "It's really you? I thought I got the wrong person. When I walked out of the teleportation portal, I only saw your back. When I transmitted my voice, I felt that it was not your aura. You're wearing a mask. It's better to be careful. Previously, I was targeted as soon as I stepped out of the star-picking sect. Now that I've killed Fan Fong, I'm afraid the sword sect won't let me go." They won't. The sword sect won't dare to act recklessly. Since the Ling Tian sect has intervened, they can only take revenge on you as an inner disciple. Without absolute confidence, they won't dare to act recklessly. The Ling Tian sect has intervened. Chen Hao was slightly taken aback. "Let's talk when we reach Black Iron City. There's a restaurant called the First Fragrance in the city center. I'll meet you there alone." While Yi Feishue was transmitting her voice, She had already sped up and led the group to overtake Chen Hao so that the people around her would not be suspicious. All right. Along the way, Chen Hao encountered countless cultivators with a powerful cultivation base. Obviously, these people had just come out of the Black Wind ancient cave. They had only come out after Xia Yuyu had killed the Red Flame Beast. Chen Hao maintained the speed of a Mastery Golden Core stage. It was neither fast nor slow and did not attract much attention. However, he was conflicted. No matter what, Chen Hao did not expect the Ling Tian sect to protect him. Although he could not guess what was going on, Chen Hao did not care. However, Xia Yu must have known about his situation. Other than killing the Red Flame Beast, she must have come to the Black Wind ancient cave to look for him. Had she come out now? Should he meet her? Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 264. Black Iron City, the center of the city, the One Fragrance Restaurant. In the world of cultivation, cultivators, especially those above the Golden Elixir stage, had already reached the stage where they did not need ordinary food to provide nourishment. However, any city had countless restaurants. Furthermore, the business of restaurants had always been booming, especially in densely populated large cities. This was because restaurants were one of the places where cultivators gathered. It was also one of the best places for cultivators to obtain information. The One Fragrance Restaurant was located in the most prosperous area of Black Iron City. It was a famous restaurant in Black Iron City. Ordinary people did not have the qualifications to enter. This was a restaurant that catered to cultivators. More than an hour later, Chen Hao arrived at the entrance of the One Fragrance Restaurant at a moderate pace. Before he entered, the strong aroma of wine and food assaulted his senses. This made Chen Hao, who had not tasted good wine and food for a long time, to have a great appetite. Little brother, the private rooms of the restaurant are full. You can only eat in the main hall. The waiter quickly came up and said. After entering the world of cultivation, Chen Hao, who had entered a restaurant for the first time, was slightly surprised. A waiter was actually a martial sage cultivator. It's okay. My friend is already here, Chen Hao said as he walked towards a table for two in the main hall. Yi Feishue waved at him. The world of cultivation is indeed different. Just a restaurant and there are so many experts. Chen Hao sat opposite Yi Feishue and said with a sigh. There's nothing strange about this. The One Fragrance Restaurant is a restaurant in Black Iron City that caters specifically to cultivators. The food and drinks here are all made from precious spiritual herbs and spiritual items. For cultivators, it's a rare delicacy. Most importantly, you can obtain a lot of information about the world of cultivation here. After you've trained for a period of time, you'll understand. Restaurants, inns, and the Immortal Way Union are places that disciples often go to for training, Yi Feishue said with a slight smile. Chen Hao nodded. Restaurants were the best places in the cultivation world for news. When cultivators entered a city and wanted to obtain the latest news, they would usually stay in restaurants. Most cultivators had ulterior motives, and most of them were not here for the fine wine and delicacies. Inns, on the other hand, were a necessity. They could provide cultivators with a relatively safe place to cultivate, especially in the cultivation world where the strong preyed on the weak. As for the Immortal Dao Union, that was even more important. This was an indispensable place for cultivators to obtain wealth. The various levels of missions could not only allow cultivators to obtain the best training, but also allow them to obtain the corresponding rewards at the same time. Furthermore, because of the strict division of the levels, cultivators could also determine the missions that were suitable for them according to their own strength. After the two of them chatted for a while, Chen Hao asked through voice transmission, "Senior sister, you haven't told the sect that you've seen me, right? You've already escaped from the Great Elder's pursuit. Senior sister won't be so talkative. The sect leader values you so much that even us core disciples are jealous, especially after the news of you killing Fan Fong spread." The sect leader immediately sent 3 elders and more than 20 sect experts in 3 groups. They only returned when the Ling Tian sect showed up. Can the Ling Tian sect stop the Flying Sword sect if they show up? Chen Hao asked. It's absolutely impossible. But at least the Flying Sword sect won't dare to act recklessly. A dead genius is no longer a genius. No matter how much the Flying Sword sect values Fanfong, they won't embarrass the Ling Tian sect because of a dead person. That's not worth it. You mean the Flying Sword sect won't dare to trouble me? That's not it. They definitely want to deal with you, but they can't do it through the Flying Sword sect's experts unless they're confident that they can kill you without any evidence and seal off all news. Otherwise, it can only be a fight between the sect's disciples. So you're right to be careful. Otherwise, you'll be in trouble if you meet their core disciples. I came to the Black Wind Ancient Cave specifically to try my luck and see if I can get the Red Flame Beast. Secondly, I want to see if I can meet you. Senior sister, don't worry. With this mask, even their core disciples won't be able to recognize me. Don't worry. I'm afraid your mask is a middle-grade spirit weapon, right? It's very good. If I didn't call out to you when I saw your back, I would have denied it when I sensed your aura. However, I suggest you use this mask less. Otherwise, it'll greatly affect your future achievements. Chen Hao frowned slightly and looked at Yi Feishue with a puzzled expression. You've only been in the cultivation world for a short time, so you probably haven't heard about Providence. Whether it's a sectless cultivator or a sect's disciple, the immortal Tao, the devil Tao, or the demon Tao, they're all related to the providence of heaven and earth. Fame and reputation, which many people in the secular world despise, are closely related to providence, regardless of whether it's good or evil. No one can explain it clearly, but it's the truth. Otherwise, how could there be any notorious people in the cultivation world? Just like Itoda, he's skilled in concealment and possession, but he still leaves his name behind. Because that's the only way his providence can become stronger. Oh, that's really mysterious, Chen Hao said with a slight surprise. He suddenly understood why most of the geniuses in the cultivation world were so arrogant and insufferably arrogant. Why don't junior brother come with me to train? With senior sister here, even if we meet their core disciples, as long as they aren't too strong and we can't defeat them, escaping shouldn't be a problem. Yi Feishue stared into Chen Hao's eyes and said, There's no need. With my current strength, I'll only be a burden to you if I follow you. Moreover, to me, it'll lose the meaning of training. Otherwise, I wouldn't have deliberately left Head Elder behind. Chen Hao said with a slight smile. That's true. You can even leave Head Elder behind, so I've worried too much. What's your plan after this? I'm going to the 100 Empire ranking. Right, senior sister, if we want to return to the secular world, do we have to go through the Chamber of Commerce? Yes. The cost is very high. Moreover, we'll be restricted by the Chamber of Commerce and the Heavenly Tao. Why do you want to return to the secular world? To see my parents and family, Chen Hao said with a smile. Hearing Chen Hao's words, Yi Feishue was slightly taken aback and said, I didn't expect someone like you to be so attached to his family. It's really rare. With your current strength and status, your family should be under the protection of the Empire. As long as you don't fall, your family will become stronger and stronger. What's there to worry about? However, you've just arrived in the cultivation world, so it's understandable. But in the future, it's best to cut off your feelings. Otherwise, it'll become a knot in your heart and evolve into an inner demon. The great Tao is heartless. Since you've already transcended that plane, you can't have too much attachment. However, if you really can't give it up, then work hard to reach the primordial spirit realm and become a supreme leader. At that time, you can bring everyone in your family to the cultivation world and become a family in the cultivation world. You can do that, Chen Hao said in surprise. Of course. If you can reach the primordial spirit realm, it'll be enough to prove that your bloodline and talent contain ancient bloodlines. It's definitely not something an ordinary person can compare to. And your family will naturally have such people. This isn't explicitly stated in the cultivation world, but it's tacitly accepted by all the sections. In the entire Eastern continent, many families come from low-level dynasties, Yi Feishue said. It seems like you're really moved. I believe you can do it. However, By the time you can do it, I'm afraid your parents, siblings, and close friends will already be gone. You don't have a heart. After all, the lifespan of an ordinary person is too short. The two of them chatted for a while before the dishes were served. Chen Hao had a great appetite. As he ate, he chatted with Yi Feishue. From the discussions of the people around and Yi Feishue's words, Chen Hao understood some information that was not mentioned in the sect's information. The name that appeared the most frequently was Xia Yuyu, who had successfully reached the incarnation realm and obtained the undying blood essence of the red flame beast 2 days ago. The second was the super geniuses from the 4 grade 9 sects in the Black Wind ancient cave. Just when Chen Hao and Yi Feishue were about to leave, 3 powerful auras suddenly came from the entrance of the restaurant. The cultivators who were sitting near the entrance immediately stopped talking and stared at the entrance with their eyes wide open. Then, 3 figures walked in under the guidance of the waiter respectfully. The entire hall instantly quieted down. The unbridled chatter turned into whispers. Young Lady Xia, the first fragrance is the most unique restaurant in Black Iron City. Brother Xia, you know that it's full every day. Young Lady Xia, you'll like it? I booked the best private room here the day before yesterday. We're just waiting for Brother Xia and Young Lady Xia. The person in the middle is Ling Tian Sec's Xia Nan Tian. He was ranked 4th in the last intersect competition. His combat strength is unfathomable. He's now a powerhouse at the peak of the mastery stage of the incarnation stage and is known as one of the 4 great young masters. The person speaking on the left is Wu Ruochen, a super genius from the grade 9 sect, Heaven Sword sect. It's hard to say where he'll place in the new 4 great young masters a year later. Junior brother? Yes, I'm listening. Chen Hao nodded, but his gaze was fixed on the devastatingly beautiful figure standing beside Xia Nantian, Xia Yuyu. Seeing Chen Hao's gaze, Yi Feishue smiled and helplessly shook her head. At this moment, not to mention Chen Hao, all the men in the hall had their gazes fixed on Xia Yuyu, unable to move even an inch. Even as a woman, Yi Feishue had to admit that Xia Yuyu, who was known as the #1 beauty in the eastern continent, was not someone she could compare to. Big brother, Brother Wu, can we stay in the hall? While Xia Nantian and Wu Ruochen were chatting, Xia Yuyu suddenly asked. At the same time, her clear and beautiful eyes slowly swept across the cultivators in the hall, as if she was looking for someone. Although she did not do it deliberately, the aura of stepping into the incarnation realm caused the cultivators who were staring at her to hurriedly avoid her gaze. Their faces were filled with shame and their hearts were filled with shame. Chapter 265. Chen Hao also avoided those familiar eyes. Hearing Xia Yuyu's words, Wu Ruochen frowned as he looked at the noisy crowd. Yuyu has never experienced anything and likes crowds. Brother Wu, let's just sit in the hall. Xia Nantian said softly when Wu Ruochen was feeling awkward. With Wu Ruochen's cultivation, he wasn't at the level where he could talk to him. Moreover, he was 10 years younger. But Wu Ruochen's potential was something that Xia Nantian couldn't ignore. Although he knew that Wu Ruochen's main goal was to befriend his sister, he didn't mind. Since Xia Yuyu was about to start her training, it was a good thing for her to meet some super geniuses. Of course, Xia Nantian also knew why his sister wanted to sit in the hall. Miss Xia should have come into contact with the world of cultivation long ago, Wu Ruochen said as he looked at the people in the hall. Everyone, please feel free to chat. If there's anything interesting, just say it. I, Wu Ruochen, will pay for everyone's expenses. Thank you, thank you. Some of the cultivators in the crowd immediately responded. There was an empty table next to Chen Hao and Yi Feishue. The 3 quickly sat down. Coincidentally, Xia Yuyu's position was facing Yi Feishue, so she could see Chen Hao's back. Sister, are you a disciple of the star-picking sect? What made Chen Hao confused was that Xia Yuyu, who had never experienced anything, was still so naive and cute that it was a bit scary. After seeing the mark on Yi Feishue's chest, she didn't care about the gazes of the crowd and directly asked with her pleasant voice. Monsieur? Yi Feishue was slightly stunned and quickly said, She also didn't think that Xia Yuyu would ask. In her opinion, Xia Yuyu was a super genius of a 9th-rank sect and didn't want to have anything to do with people like them. Yuyu. Xia Yuyu still wanted to say something, but was interrupted by Xia Nantian. Senior sister, we're done eating. Let's go. Chen Hao stood up and said. If he stayed any longer, he was afraid that he would reveal a flaw. Especially since Yi Feishue had recognized his back. After not seeing Xia Yuyu for 2 years, he had already changed a lot. Although Xia Yuyu was unable to recognize him in the Northern Shadow Festival, if his emotions fluctuated and he revealed a trace of the Heaven Yang Earth Yin Arts aura, Xia Yuyu might be able to detect it. Moreover, even if he wanted to acknowledge Yuyu, this was not the right time. Every single one of them was stronger than him. Xia Nantian and Xia Yuyu were much stronger than him, but that was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that Wu Ruochen's aura was also much stronger than his. However, the moment Chen Hao stood up, the 3 of them looked at Chen Hao. Wu Ruochen didn't seem to care. However, Xia Nantian and Xia Yuyu both frowned. The 2 of them were both experts of the incarnation realm. If they didn't pay attention, they wouldn't have noticed it. But now that they saw that the other party was a disciple of the star-seizing sect, Xia Nantian and Xia Yu began to carefully size them up. When he saw Chen Hao's face, he immediately caught a trace of a mysterious aura. Wait! What made Chen Hao's heart tremble was that Xia Yu's voice carried a trace of inexplicable excitement. She thought of a possibility. Originally, when she came to the Black Iron City, she had sensed Chen Hao's aura, but it had disappeared in an instant. She thought that it was her imagination. But later, when she heard Xia Lanlan and Duan Yufei talk about Chen Hao after returning to the Black Iron City, she began to suspect that it was not an illusion, but a real encounter with Chen Hao. She didn't know why Chen Hao didn't acknowledge her, but she believed that Chen Hao must have his reasons. Because she understood him. After a 1.5 years of soul intertwining, comprehending and cultivating together, she believed and was incomparably sure that Chen Hao would never forget her. Miss Xia, is there anything else? Yi Feishue looked at Xia Yuyu with a little surprise and asked. But Chen Hao didn't turn around. He already knew that he had made a mistake. The middle-grade 1000 illusion mask could hide from nascent soul experts, but it couldn't hide from incarnation experts. Although the other party couldn't confirm his true identity, they could definitely see that he was wearing a mask. This point he and Chen Shui, who had powerful soul force, could see through it, let alone them. Sorry, big brother, I know. This sister, if you see Chen Hao, please tell him that I, Yuyu, my cousin Xia Lanlan and Duan Yufei, they really want to see him. Xia Yuyu was simple but not stupid. Her words paused at the right time. Except for Chen Hao and Xia Nantian, no one understood what was going on. Xia Nantian lightly sighed in relief. At this moment, Xia Yuyu had suddenly broken through to incarnation realm. It was already impossible for him to suppress her with his aura. Moreover, he couldn't bear to see Yuyu's stubbornness. Therefore, he only reminded her and didn't forcefully stop her. Could that guy be Chen Hao? Xia Nantian also had doubts in his heart. I can pass on this message. Just as Yi Feishue was in a daze, Chen Hao finally turned his head and said, Chen Hao and I are best friends. I even saw him in the Dark Wind Cave. He also told me that he really wants to ascend to a high enough realm as soon as possible and become friends with super geniuses like brother Duan Yufei. Unfortunately, his current strength is too weak. He doesn't dare to climb the social ladder. I will tell him. However, with his character, I'm afraid that I can only disappoint brother Duan's invitation. Is that so? My cousin and Duan Yufei will wait for him. Wait for him to be strong enough. And it shouldn't be too long. Perhaps he will participate in the inter-sect competition next year. We'll take our leave. Chen Hao didn't dare to look at Xia Yuyu's eyes under everyone's gaze. After speaking, he took the lead and walked out of the restaurant. Yi Feishue followed closely behind. So it really is him, good, he's arrogant enough? I wonder if his true face is as good as Duan Yufei said. Xia Nantian thought to himself as he watched Chen Hao's departing figure. Duan Yufei is a righteous person? After watching the two leave, Wu Ruochen smiled and said, "It's rare for the Zhaixing sect to produce a passable genius like Chen Hao. However, their disciples think too highly of him. Is it so easy to break through to the nascent soul realm?" Even he had been stuck at the peak of the late-stage golden core realm for more than a year. Only after confirming that there were no problems did he dare to trigger heaven's punishment. However, Chen Hao was only at the late-stage golden core realm. Although he could kill Fan Fang without any problems in terms of battle strength, heaven's punishment didn't just test one's battle strength. It also tested one's body, mind, and soul. If there were any problems in any of these areas, one's cultivation would be destroyed. Let's not talk about this. I heard that Brother Wu has mastered the 9th level of the Heaven Sword technique? Xia Nantian hurriedly said. He knew his sister's personality. Fortunately, Xia Yu didn't seem to hear Wu Ruochen. The intersect competition? Only Chen Hao's voice reverberated in Xia Yu's mind. Even though he'd changed his voice and appearance, his words from before had undoubtedly told him that he was Chen Hao. It had also undoubtedly told her why he hadn't come to see her. At the same time, it had also told her that the intersect competition might be the moment when the prideful him would truly meet her. Inadvertently, a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. She didn't release her telepathy, and neither did Chen Hao. However, both of them knew that the reason why they had spoken so openly was not through telepathy or telepathy. They were afraid that they wouldn't be able to control themselves. Junior brother, do you want to participate in next year's intersect competition? After the two walked out of the restaurant, Yi Feishue couldn't help but ask. Chen Hao smiled faintly and nodded. His eyes shone brightly. When he first had this idea, although he would work hard in that direction, he wasn't as determined as he was now. Tianfei is very dangerous, Yi Feishue said with lingering fear. I'm confident. Senior sister, let's part here. I'm going to Dragon Elephant City where the 100 Empire role is located, Chen Hao said. Be careful. After bidding farewell to Yi Feishue, Chen Hao went directly to the Heavenly Armament Pavilion's teleportation array. Passing through the transportation formations, they arrived at Dragon Elephant City in less than an hour. At this moment, the sky had already darkened. The night seemed to come earlier than Black Iron City, which was millions of miles away. Looks like today's competition has already ended. I wonder how many rounds have passed. I'll go find Elder Wu and Senior Sister first. Chen Hao casually asked around in the Heavenly Armament Pavilion and found out where Wu Zichuan and Dongfang Ting were staying. The Heavenly Armament Inn was a large inn opened to cultivators in the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. Li Cho, do you dare to bet? Why wouldn't I dare? I bet that Hellion Wuzi will be the champion. Fuck. Then why did you say that? Didn't you always say that Kai Hua was awesome? Why did you change your mind now? Do you think I'm an idiot? Kai Hua is awesome, but Hellion Wuzi hid her strength too deeply. Even the so-called most awesome 100 Empire ranking in the previous competition was trampled by her. Chen Hao had just walked into the hall of the Heavenly Armament Inn when he heard some young disciples discussing. These disciples were clearly some outer sect disciples of some sections. What made Chen Hao smile even more was that Hellion Wuzi seemed to have exceeded his expectations. Sir, are you staying in the inn or drinking wine? At this moment, a beautiful attendant came over with a smile. Staying in the inn and drinking wine. Get a room with me first, and bring me a few bottles of your best wine. Chen Hao said with a smile. All right, sit anywhere you like, please wait a moment. Chen Hao's powerful aura attracted some outer sect disciples in the hall. However, Chen Hao did not wear the Zhaixing sect's robes, so no one could guess. Chen Hao did not pay attention to them. He chose a corner and started drinking by himself, his ears gathering information about the 100 Empire ranking. It must be said that this kind of drinking place was indeed the best place to spread news. Little Wu is actually a rank 3 martial saint, and she can even hide her cultivation. Then is rank 3 martial saint her true cultivation? Hearing the discussions of the crowd, Chen Hao's mood became better and better. Chapter 266. Needless to say, Helian Woozy must have obtained an extremely powerful legacy. Of course, being able to have such a cultivation in the secular world had a lot to do with him. Chen Hao didn't know the specifics, but the treatment that Helian Woozy enjoyed was probably countless times better than what he had received. In addition to this, there was also the most mysterious and unpredictable fate in the world. However, Chen Hao didn't think that he would have much effect on this. It would definitely be helpful, but it mainly depended on one's fate and opportunity. However, when he heard the names of Mo Yui and Dongfang Jun, Chen Hao faintly felt that perhaps the impact of his fate on everyone was beyond his expectations. Little Mo has also reached the 9th grade of Sword Grandmaster. Dongfang Jun is a 9th grade Martial Grandmaster. Jinyuan Kingdom has taken up 3 places, and they are all so strong, far from what our batch can compare to. Is this really the fate that I brought to them? It's just that, my fate is so strong, is it my own or? Chen Hao thought of Xia Yu. Fate and fate are actually fate. It is the most mysterious existence in the world. Among the 3,000 great Daos, the great fate technique ranks first. It is illusory and unfathomable. With my current realm, I'm unable to understand it at all, nor am I able to understand it. Karmic luck is like an invisible web of relationships that affect and restrict each other. No matter if it's my own karmic luck or the karmic luck of others, if I can grasp it, then it's mine. Chen Hao got the information he wanted and didn't stay any longer. He quickly finished the wine in front of him, went directly to the room he had booked, and entered the cultivation room. However, he didn't immediately enter the cultivation room. Instead, he began to organize his storage space for the first time. It took him a full 4 hours to finish. If converted into 8th grade elixirs, I'm afraid there are nearly 100 million of them. Duan Yufei, Itoda, and Fujikawa are enough to take up more than 80% of them. Chen Hao didn't hesitate to filter out some of the 8th grade elixirs, 9th grade elixirs, and the spirit weapons that he didn't need. According to Yang Fan, Li Yifeng, Ni Jianpain, Helian Woozy, Mo Yui, and Dongfang Jun, he divided them into 6 portions, enough for them to use for a period of time. He then gave a large portion to Dongfang Ting. Although Dongfang Ting was in the Golden Core realm, Chen Hao knew that her wealth was limited. Otherwise, when he returned to the secular world, he wouldn't have been so shabby. Although Chen Hao thought that he was super rich at that time, he didn't have to worry about it. But now, compared to the nouveau riche Chen Hao, there was really no comparison. Not to mention Dongfang Ting, even the super genius disciples of the 9th rank sects might not be as wealthy as Chen Hao. Chen Hao planned to bring back the rest of the things that he didn't need. On the second day, at the first glimmer of dawn, Chen Hao went to the practice field where the 100 Empire ranking competition was being held. He bought the tickets and sat among the crowd that had arrived earlier than him. Today was the second day of the round-robin tournament for the top 20 of the 100 Empire ranking. Helian Woozy, Mo Yui, and Dongfang Jun, the 3 of them had all entered the top 20, and Helian Woozy was unanimously recognized as the champion by everyone. Mo Yui and Dongfang Jun also had the strength to enter the top 10, because during the selection, the 2 of them had only admitted defeat. Chen Hao had already obtained this information last night. At this moment, the surrounding people's discussions were even more heated, and countless disciples were drooling over Helian Woozy. At first, Chen Hao was still interested, but after listening for a while, he had the urge to kill. He simply blocked his hearing. He couldn't be serious just because of some flowery words. An hour later, the sky was bright. The practice field was already crowded with people. The disciples of the 100 Empire ranking were like dense locusts, directly flying in the air. The number of people was not much different from the previous competition, but whether it was individual soldiers or as a whole, the aura was much stronger than the previous competition. At this moment, Chen Hao, who seemed to be resting with his eyes closed, finally opened his eyes. He released his powerful soul perception and instantly locked onto a beautiful figure. Wearing a white dress, long hair fluttering in the wind, a graceful and exquisite body, and a face as cold as the moon, after not seeing her for 2 years, the only girl that Chen Hao had called femme fatale, and had taken advantage of appeared even more beautiful and moving. Even if Chen Hao saw her again, his heart trembled slightly. Especially when he thought of how Hellion Wuzi seemed to have gone crazy when he left, her face full of tears as she crashed into the transmission light pillar barrier. Chen Hao was even more moved. Although he didn't compare Hellion Wuzi, Tantai Lien, or Xia Yu, Chen Hao was clear that the one who truly made him feel the most understanding, the most warm, and the most real was still Hellion Wuzi. Mo Yui, who used to be like a block of wood, was still tightly holding onto that large sword. However, he was no longer a block of wood, but an unsheathed peerless treasure sword. His expression was cold, and his aura was cold. Especially his eyes, which were like two sharp and merciless sword lights. From beginning to end, he maintained a distance of 5 steps to the right of Hellion Wuzi and 2 steps to the back. As for Dongfang Jun, who had once wanted to violently beat him to death, his handsome face still looked as infuriating as before. Arrogance and arrogance were written all over his face. However, the position he stood in was very tacit with Mo Yui, as if he had become Hellion Wuzi's bodyguard. "Little Mo, my aunt said that Chen Hao would come. Our 100 Empire ranking is already nearing the end, but there's still no sign of him. Could it be that something happened?" Dongfang Jun said in a low voice. "Call me second brother. Call me boss. Nothing will happen to boss." Mo Yui said coldly, "This problem, wait until you have the strength to defeat me. There's no problem with calling you boss, it's just that I can't change the way I address you right now. Although my aunt didn't say it clearly, I feel that boss seems to have offended a very powerful person. You were also very powerful back then. Today, I'll make you kneel down." "Fuck, can you not talk about the past? Today, you're dreaming, right? I'll never be surpassed by you." Strange, even I can't see through it. Chen Hao looked at the 3 people as well as the 2 disciples behind them whose auras were obviously much weaker. Especially when he heard Mo Yui and Dongfang Jun's conversation, he was completely relieved. But carefully sensing Hellion Wuzi's aura, he was actually unable to distinguish her true realm. This made Chen Hao incomparably surprised. One must know that Chen Hao's soul perception was many times stronger than ordinary people. It was not something that people of the same realm or even 2 realms higher than him could compare to. But Hellion Wuzi's aura was like the clouds in the sky, erratic and unfathomable. What kind of fortuitous encounter did she have in these 2 years? After Hellion Wuzi and the other disciples of the 100 Empire ranking took their seats one after another, Chen Hao retracted his gaze and looked at the sect elders and the inner sect disciples who came slowly. After seeing Elder Wu and Dongfang Ting at the back of the group, they slowly stood up. Elder Wu flew directly to the rostrum. Dongfang Ting flew to the outer sect low-level disciples accompanying the 100 Empire ranking trial in the Zhaixing sect. Chen Hao smiled slightly. When he transmitted a message to Dongfang Ting, his figure flashed and quickly approached. After a while, Chen Hao sat beside Dongfang Ting. His identity became an inner sect disciple of the Zhaixing sect. But none of the outer sect disciples sitting at the back recognized him. The 2 of them communicated through voice transmission without changing their expressions. Chen Hao obtained a lot of information about the Shao family, Jinyuan Kingdom, and Xuanwu Empire from Dongfang Ting. In 2 years' time, astonishing changes had occurred again. Especially the Shao family and Jinyuan Kingdom. The 2 of them only stopped talking 2 hours after the competition started. As Chen Hao expected, Hellion Wuzi did not even have a chance to appear after a day. In front of her, the only one who did not admit defeat was the strongest disciple, Kai Hua. The 2 of them would definitely be arranged for the last match of the 100 Empire ranking. Fortunately, Mo Yui and Dongfang Jun had fought twice. The first time, both of their opponents were experts in the top 20, but both of them displayed powerful battle strength and obtained victory. But their opponents in the second match were each other. After fighting for half an hour, there was still no winner. Mo Yui's sword intent was incomparably sharp, attacking more than defending. But Dongfang Jun's battle talent was stronger. Although he was suppressed by Mo Yui could not do anything to him. In the end, the two of them were depressed and declared a draw again. When the day's competition ended, Dongfang Ting brought Chen Hao and flew directly to Helian Wuzi's side. "Aunt, is there any news about Chen Hao?" Dongfang Jun did not care at all when he saw the unfamiliar face of Chen Hao. He went directly to Dongfang Ting and asked. Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui also stared at Dongfang Ting. Obviously, Dongfang Ting's arrival made the three of them faintly expectant. "No, the two of us are here today as lobbyists. We'll go back with you." Dongfang Ting smiled and said. Hearing Dongfang Ting's words, Helian Wuzi's beautiful and cold eyes flashed with imperceptible disappointment. Mo Yui also resumed his cold appearance. "What lobbyists? Can we still run away?" Dongfang Jun said. "Okay, I have to put on an act and talk to you about the conditions promised by the sect. After all, the three of you are the most outstanding, especially Xiao Wu. The two of them are not bad either." Dongfang Ting could only follow Chen Hao's intentions and temporarily lie to Helian Wuzi and the others. "Then let's go. This senior brother's aura is so strong. Aunt, is he also an inner disciple of the Jiaxing sect? I'll introduce him to you when you stay. Let's go." Chen Hao smiled and did not speak. Helian Wuzi and Mo Yui were the same. If they could not speak, they would not speak more than half a sentence. "Junior brother, I'll talk to the two of them. Xiao Wu, little Mo and little Jun, do you want to talk to them one by one or all together?" After everyone flew for a few minutes and returned to the independent palace where the disciples of the 100 Empire ranking temporarily lived, Dongfang Ting looked at Chen Hao and then at Helian Wuzi and said, "Mo Yui and Dongfang Jun together. Helian Wuzi alone." Chen Hao said straightforwardly. He looked at Helian Wuzi and said, "Go to the room and wait for me. I'll talk to the two of them first. Let's go." Hearing Chen Hao's words, Helian Wuzi and the others were slightly stunned. Immediately, Helian Wuzi finally spoke. Her voice naturally carried a bone-chilling coldness as she said, "I don't need to talk anymore. I don't care about any conditions. I'll go and cultivate first." After Helian Wuzi finished speaking, she turned and walked towards a palace. "Xiao Wu, you really don't want to talk?" At this moment, Chen Hao suddenly said. He recovered his voice and a smile appeared on his ordinary face. "I wish everyone a happy Mid-Autumn Festival and a happy National Day. Wushan is now on the way to Chengdu. I really can't explode. I can only apologize to everyone." Chapter 267. Helian Wuzi's heart skipped a beat. She turned around abruptly and looked at Chen Hao with a trace of surprise and doubt in her cold eyes. Mo Yui and Dongfang Jun's expressions changed too. That familiar voice, who else could it be but Chen Hao? Although they had not seen each other for 2 years and Chen Hao's voice had changed slightly, Helian Wuzi, Mo Yui, and Dongfang Jun could still recognize it. However, the aura and appearance of the person in front of them were completely different. "Wait for me in the room. I'll talk to little Mo and Dongfang Jun first," Chen Hao said to Helian Wuzi. After speaking, he took the lead and walked towards the palace. Mo Yui and Dongfang Jun looked at each other and followed. "Senior sister, he is, just wait for him to talk to you." Dongfang Ting smiled and stopped Helian Wuzi. After speaking, she brought the other 2 disciples of the Xuanwu Empire to a room. These 2 disciples were far from Helian Wuzi and the other 2 in terms of strength and realm, but they were also quite outstanding in this year's 100 Empire ranking. However, Chen Hao did not have any relationship with them. It was not important whether he could win them over. What was important was that he did not want them to know Chen Hao's identity. "Chen Hao?" "Boss." After stepping into the room, Chen Hao's aura suddenly changed and he took off the 1,000 illusion mask. Dongfang Jun and Mo Yui immediately cried out in surprise. "What's there to be surprised about? I want to hide from some people, so I hid my identity." "Boss, you offended someone powerful?" Mo Yui interrupted Chen Hao and frowned. He could not help but emit a fierce murderous aura. "Why are you so agitated? We can't help anyone who can make boss hide. We can only add to the trouble. However, Chen Hao, boss, Did you offend someone powerful? Although Aunt did not say it clearly, I can feel. Dongfang Jun said. I've already killed him. Don't worry. I just want to go and train. I don't want the sect behind him to know his whereabouts at all times. Well, I'll be leaving soon, so I'll make a long story short. Although the star-picking sect was only a third-grade sect, they had an advantage before reaching the Golden Elixir realm. Hence, the competition was very fierce. Therefore, the two of you should do your best to fight for a place in the 100 Empire ranking. Firstly, you need to win the sect master's reward. Secondly, you need to fight for your own luck. Today, I saw the disciples on the 100 Empire ranking. The two of you are third and fourth. There is still hope. After entering the sect, Senior Sister Dongfang Ting will explain everything to you. This is for the two of you. As Chen Hao spoke, he took out 2 storage rings that he had prepared and placed them in front of Mo Yui and Dongfang Jun. What is it? They're things that can be used for cultivation, such as pills, spirit weapons, and ultimate techniques. I chose it based on the two of you, so it should be useful. Once you arrive at the Star-Seizing sect, find Yang Fan, Li Feng, and Denai Jian Pain and come directly to my mountain peak to cultivate. Alright, the two of you still have to compete tomorrow. Go and cultivate. I'll leave directly later. I won't bother you anymore. Chen Hao said. Mo Yui still wanted to say something, but Dongfang Jun directly pulled him back and said, Alright, then quickly go and see little Wu He. We'll talk about it after you return to the star-picking sect. You. When Chen Hao appeared in front of Helian Wuzi, her delicate body trembled slightly. She wanted to say something but stopped. She stared blankly at the extraordinarily handsome Chen Hao. 2 years. In these 2 years, she had been cultivating crazily all the time in order to step into the cultivation world and catch up with his footsteps. Especially when she heard that Tantai Lien and he had obtained the inheritance of the Phoenix at the same time, she became even crazier, and now she finally met him. Why, you don't recognize me? Chen Hao smiled slightly and stared at Helian Wuzi's beautiful little face. Faintly, Chen Hao caught a trace of a strange aura from Helian Wuzi's eyes. I don't recognize you. Helian Wuzi turned her face away and said. She looked away with a trace of imperceptible excitement in her eyes. Then I'll beat you until you recognize me. Come, let me see what realm you're in. Chen Hao said with a slight smile. You're already in the late stage of the Golden Core realm. You still want to bully me? Helian Wuzi turned her head and said. Are you weak? Chen Hao said. You can tell? When Helian Wuzi heard Chen Hao say fight, her heart was even more excited. But now, when she heard Chen Hao say so, her eyes widened in surprise. Nothing can hide from me. Do you want to fight? If you don't, then tell me what's going on. I'm very curious. In the 2 years in the secular world, what exactly did you encounter to be so strong? Chen Hao said. Tell me first, how can you tell? Helian Wuzi said. Intuition. Not to mention you, I can even feel an expert of the nascent soul realm. Tell me quickly, what's going on? Chen Hao urged. When Chen Hao came to Dragon Elephant City and heard the news about Helian Wuzi, he was only surprised. Especially those disciples who were discussing, none of them could accurately tell Helian Wuzi's realm. Originally, Chen Hao only thought that these low-level disciples had limited eyesight. But after seeing Helian Wuzi and talking to Dongfang Ting, he understood that it wasn't that those disciples had low eyesight, but even Elder Wu and the other sect elders couldn't see through her. Similarly, what surprised Chen Hao even more was that even he couldn't see through her. How strong was his soul perception? I don't know. You don't know? I didn't encounter any powerful legacy, but what? I can't tell you. Unless you defeat me. I only know that my current realm should be in the late stage of the nascent soul realm. Helian Wuzi said. In fact, even if Chen Hao defeated her, she couldn't say why. Everything came out of nowhere. Cough cough. Chen Hao almost choked. Although he felt that Helian Wuzi definitely had a shocking improvement, it was more likely that she had obtained some kind of powerful treasure that could make her aura become so mysterious. But no matter what, Chen Hao didn't expect Helian Wuzi to have improved to a realm that he couldn't even reach. This was a bit unbelievable. This time, I'll definitely defeat you. Helian Wuzi glared at Chen Hao. She spoke with her head held high. Come. Psst. Little Wu, I think we should forget it. If you can't say, how can I force you? I have something important to do now, and I've already told little Mo and Dongfang Jun. After meeting you, I'll leave. You want to run? I really have something important to do. If you don't believe me, you can ask little Mo and the rest. Chen Hao said. But seeing that Helian Wuzi's aura was slowly changing and didn't have any intention of letting him go, he hurriedly said again, how about a year later? A year later, I'll give you a chance to take revenge. The realm difference is too big. If you really want to fight, I won't fight back? Rascal. Well, I'll wait for you for a year. A year later, if the realm difference is even bigger, I don't care. But if that's the case, I'll let you take it back. That's settled. This is for you. No, it seems to be useless. What is it? Helian Wuzi directly took it from Chen Hao's hands and asked. At the same time, she used her mind to explore the storage ring that Chen Hao had erased. After seeing the things inside, she said, what I lack the most now are elixirs. I need a lot of them for cultivation, but they're not very useful. Don't tell me you don't know that your realm needs to start using primordial crystal stones? Primordial crystal stones? Helian Wuzi was slightly stunned. These are all for you. Seeing Helian Wuzi's expression, Chen Hao was sure that Helian Wuzi was ignorant, just like him. There was no other way. The foundation of Zhenyuan Kingdom was too weak after all. Moreover, Helian Wuzi definitely did not reveal her realm. Otherwise, she would definitely know about primordial crystal stones. Compared to the genius disciples of some powerful kingdoms, her knowledge was indeed far inferior. Don't waste elixirs in the future. Above the Golden Core realm, the spirit chi of heaven and earth contained in elixirs is not very useful anymore. Only primordial crystal stones are useful. Now that you're in the late stage of the nascent soul realm, it's best if you can use mid-grade primordial crystal stones. But I don't have much of that stuff. I'll give you more than half of it. I'll also give you more than half of the low-grade primordial crystal stones. Also, after arriving at the star-picking sect, you can hide your nascent soul realm for the time being. But you can reveal your golden core realm at the appropriate time. You can strive to obtain the qualifications for the 4th level of the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven. Without any hesitation, Chen Hao gave her more than half of his rations, leaving only a small portion. Do you have enough? Helian Wuzi looked at the pieces of primordial crystal stones that contained boundless energy floating out and asked with warmth in her heart. If someone else gave it to her, she would definitely not accept it. But she would not reject Chen Hao's. It's enough. When you familiarize yourself with the cultivation world, you'll know that people like me are most likely to meet people who give me wealth. Chen Hao said with a slight smile. An hour later, Chen Hao put on the 1,000 illusion mask. Harboring a puzzled but very good mood, he left the mountain peak where the 100 Empire ranking disciples resided with Dongfang Ting. Dongfang Ting returned directly to the inn. And Chen Hao asked about the situation of returning to the secular world and walked directly to the Heavenly Armament Pavilion's VIP reception room. There are 4 possibilities for this situation. The first is that she obtained a powerful legacy. But since she said that she didn't, this situation can be ruled out. The second is bloodline awakening. The so-called bloodline awakening requires her to be born with a strong bloodline concentration of some kind of powerful life form. Once awakened, her body's strength will have an astonishing increase. There's a possibility of this, but it's not great. Because I didn't feel any bloodline power. The third is turning into a mortal. Many cultivators, when their cultivation reaches a very high realm and they encounter an unbreakable bottleneck, will reincarnate and be reborn as a human. Although it's very similar to reincarnation, there are some differences. Because they can recover their past memories after passing the mystery of being in the womb. The possibility of this is not great. If it's true, she should have recovered her memories by now. Otherwise, it's impossible for her to improve so quickly. And she doesn't even know what a primal crystal stone is. Obviously, she's not playing dumb with you. In fact, there's no need to play dumb with you. The mysterious existence in Qinhao's mind said as he walked toward the Heavenly Armament Pavilion's VIP reception room. What about the fourth possibility? Qinhao asked. Sorry, I'm updating so late. I can only write one chapter today. I've just arrived at my relative's house, so I have no choice. I'll try to make up for it tomorrow. Chapter 268. The fourth possibility, which is also the most likely one, is that she has awakened the power of reincarnation, said the mysterious existence. The power of reincarnation? You mean she isn't? Qinhao's expression changed slightly as he asked. She is still her. All life forms in this world have reincarnation. Unless one's body and soul are destroyed and their soul imprint completely vanishes, when one's life ends, it is the beginning of reincarnation. A few lifetimes, even dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of lifetimes exist. Every reincarnation, because the soul imprint is the same, the strength of the soul does not change much. But every time one reincarnates, the power of reincarnation in the soul imprint will strengthen a little. However, those who can awaken the power of reincarnation are few and far between. Her situation is very suitable for this. Reincarnation, among the 3,000 great Taoists, is second only to fate, karma, and wish. It is mysterious and unfathomable. It gathers the essence of the comprehension of the heavenly Tao in every lifetime. Once it is awakened, some heavenly Tao laws and cultivation mantras will appear in the soul from time to time. It is as if the heavens have descended. Even she herself does not know what is going on. Isn't that too powerful? Qinhao was shocked. It is very powerful. But everything has its pros and cons. In 2 years, she was able to advance to the late-stage nascent soul realm in the secular world. At least this means that she has surpassed the nascent soul realm in one lifetime. Only when her speed of advancement slows down and she has to rely on her own comprehension will she reach her limit. At that time, she can only rely on herself. And because of the influence of the power of reincarnation, her highest realm may be limited to when the power of reincarnation is exhausted. Instead, it will become her shackles. Fortunately, she has you. You don't have to worry too much. What do you mean? The great reincarnation art. When she is restricted, you can teach her the great reincarnation art. Others may not be able to cultivate it, but it is much easier for those who have awakened the power of reincarnation. The chances of success are very high. Once she cultivates it, she will be able to use her own reincarnation to connect to the great reincarnation Tao. Her achievements will be limitless. It's here. In the imperial palace of the Xuanwu Empire, the Emperor, Mu Qing, Zhao Xingchen of the Jinyuan Kingdom, and other important figures who were waiting for the news of the 100 Empire ranking were all excited when they saw the mysterious aura that suddenly flashed from the teleportation array. Without a doubt, the 100 Empire rankings should have ended. However, after a flash of light, everyone's eyes widened. Qinhao? Qin Zhenren? Everyone thought that the Heavenly Armament Pavilion, who was in charge of the 100 Empire ranking, had sent a message. They never thought that the person who would appear in the transmission array would be Qinhao. Their faces were filled with surprise and joy. In the entire Xuanwu Empire, after Qinhao stepped into the cultivation world, no one knew better than the people present how strong the aura of the royal bloodline had become. In particular, Qinhao's bloodline aura had grown at an unbelievable speed in just 2 years. As a result, the entire Xuanwu Empire's providence increased tremendously. Greetings, Zhenren Qin. After a brief moment of surprise, the Emperor, Mu Qing, Zhao Xingchen, and the others all bowed to Qinhao without exception. Their expressions were respectful and reverent, with a trace of respect from the bottom of their hearts. Qinhao's deeds in the cultivation world were already known to the disciples of the cultivation world when they rushed over to prepare for the 100 Empire ranking. Although it wasn't all of it, it was enough to shock them. What kind of providence could such a super genius bring to the empire? No one could imagine. Everyone, no need to be so polite. I'm returning to my family to settle some personal matters. The 100 Empire ranking should end the day after tomorrow. Looking at everyone's expressions, Chen Hao forcibly suppressed the word senior and said, Qin Jinren, is there anything we can help you with? The emperor of the Xuanwu Empire asked hurriedly. Chen Hao shook his head and smiled. I'm just visiting my parents. I only have one day, so I won't talk much with you. You don't have to worry about the 100 Empire ranking this time. The champion will definitely be Helian Wuzi. Mo Yui and Dongfang Jun will be in the top 5 if nothing unexpected happens. The other two are also outstanding. Hearing Chen Hao's words, everyone was excited. Although they were already sure that the results of this 100 Empire ranking would be very good, they didn't expect it to be so good. Especially Zhao Xingchen of the Jinyuan Kingdom. His old face was a mess of excitement. Chen Hao exchanged a few pleasantries under everyone's enthusiasm and directly left. 4 hours later, Jinyuan Kingdom, Cloud State City. A handsome figure appeared in the void as fast as lightning. This figure was Chen Hao. Returning to the secular world once is 2 million level 8 spirit pills. Ordinary cultivators really can't afford it, and this is with the help of the Xuanwu Empire's transportation array. Chen Hao said with a sigh. The cultivation world and the secular world didn't only have the restrictions of the Heavenly Tao's laws, but also the restrictions of the cultivation world. Once violated, anyone would be punished, and the sect couldn't protect them, because this was a convention jointly set by the entire cultivation world. Only the 100 Empire ranking, which connected the secular world and the cultivation world, had the privilege to enter the secular world. Just like Xian Xian, Dongfang Ting, and the others back then, Chen Hao was a disciple of the 100 Empire ranking. Being able to use the transportation array of his empire saved him a lot of money. However, even so, ordinary cultivators would not be able to bear the burden of such a thing. Chen Hao had already learned about the Shao family's recent situation from Dongfang Ting. But at this moment, he was still slightly surprised when he sensed the vigorous aura of the Shao family. Although it couldn't be compared to the cultivation world, this aura actually faintly overshadowed the aura of the Xuanwu Empire's capital. In particular, Chen Hao's bloodline was inextricably linked to the Jinyuan Kingdom, Cloud State, and the Shao family through the imperial bloodline of the empire. He could clearly sense that the imperial bloodline's aura was countless times denser than before he left, filling the area below the Shao family. This caused the spirit qi of heaven and earth within a radius of tens of thousands of kilometers to automatically gather here. It was like the aura of a king worshipped by thousands of Buddhas and mountains. The imperial bloodline is actually a kind of luck that comes from one's bloodline. Even with my current realm, I can't grasp its mysteries. Chen Hao thought to himself and restrained his aura. He didn't want to cause too much of a stir when he returned to the secular world. And time was pressing. He had to leave after meeting his parents. His most important purpose was to give the nameless old man's memory crystal to his father. I hope you can help me investigate my mother's situation carefully, Chen Hao said in his mind after locking on the location of his parents. Try your best. I'm your magic weapon, restricted by your realm. The only thing I'm better than you is my knowledge. You can only touch things related to life, souls, and soul imprints when you reach the creator realm. So, even if I can sense something now, there's nothing I can do. I understand, but I have to know what I'm doing. Father may not tell me, Chen Hao said. Just as Chen Hao appeared in the sky above Cloud State, his father, who was drinking tea and admiring flowers with his mother in the small courtyard pavilion, frowned slightly and looked up at the void. What's wrong, Ahai? Mother noticed Chen Hao's strange behavior and asked. Mother, I suddenly feel that our Tianzi is coming back, Chen Hai said with a smile. Really? Don't lie to me, Chen Hao's mother asked excitedly. Chen Hao's mother didn't know when it started, but Chen Hai had become a half-immortal in her heart, as if he could predict the future. Every time he said he had a feeling, it would definitely become true. That was why she was so excited after hearing Chen Hai's words. None of her 3 children were by her side now. Chen Yen and Chen Nan had just entered the Royal New Show Hall and could come back to see her often. But what about Chen Hao? Although Chen Hao was not her biological son, she cared about Chen Hao the most. She didn't know what the other world was like. She only knew that it was her son who changed the fate of the family and became a supreme existence, rising to a height that she couldn't understand at all. When the big shots in the whole Jinyuan kingdom and even the whole Xuanwu empire saw her, they had to bow respectfully. But this was not what she wanted. She only wanted to see her son every day. Wasn't it good to have a happy family? But she could only keep these words in her heart. No matter how much she missed her son, she couldn't say it, because she was afraid that it would affect her son's future. Well, it should be, Chen Hai said with great certainty. Frowning, he thought to himself, why did Tianxi come back at this time? With his current realm, at best, he has reached the golden elixir realm. He doesn't have the ability to come back. If he goes through the Chamber of Commerce, it will cost a lot of money. Is there something important? Chen Hai felt a faint sense of uneasiness. Mei, what are you doing? At this moment, Chen Hao's mother suddenly stood up. Chen Hai hurriedly stopped her. I'll go to the door to pick up Tianxi. No need. Tianxi will be here in a while. You go and prepare his favorite dishes? Chen Hai said. Dad. Just a moment after Chen Hao's mother was sent away, Chen Hao's figure appeared silently in front of his father and called out in a low voice. In fact, when his mother stood up in surprise, Chen Hao had already arrived above them. But his father's words made him not appear for the time being. Looking at his mother's happy face, who seemed to be a few years younger, and trotted to cook, Chen Hao wished he could appear directly in front of her. But in order to talk to his father about private matters, he had to hold back for the time being. Chen Hai stared at Chen Hao for half a minute and said, the late stage of Golden Elixir Realm, the first heaven of Sword Principle, the phenomenon of wind and cloud. In only 2 years, you can make such progress in a third-grade sect. It's beyond my expectation, Dad. Chen Hao suddenly opened his eyes wide in surprise. At this moment, he didn't want to alarm anyone, so he completely restrained his breath. However, he was still seen through by his father with a single glance. If it was just this, Chen Hao wouldn't be too surprised. However, the first level of the sword Dao that his father spoke of, the phenomenon of wind and clouds, was a term that Chen Hao had never heard of. At my relative's house, it's a mess. I've only written 1 chapter since this morning. I can't calm down at all. Wushan will continue to work hard. It's hard to say whether I can make up for it today. I'm really sorry. I'll try my best. Chapter 269. What is the first heaven of Sword Principle? Chen Hao couldn't help but ask. The first heaven of Sword Principle is the way for a swordsman to divide the realm of sword essence into 9 heavens. Your sword essence has reached the peak of the first heaven of Sword Principle. With the same strength, your attack power can be doubled under the effect of sword essence. Every time you break through to the next heaven, your attack power will be doubled. That is to say, your attack power can be doubled now, but when you break through to the second heaven, it will be quadrupled, and when you break through to the third heaven, it will be quadrupled. This is the real strength of a swordsman. The further you go, the more terrifying it will be. As long as your realm of Sword Principle is high enough, you can kill a practitioner of the same level in seconds, and it is not difficult to challenge someone of a higher level. Of course, this is measured by ordinary practitioners, and a genius disciple with special talent is another matter. You mean, the sword essence can also be improved? Yes. In addition to the 9 heavens of Sword Principle, there are many kinds of sword essences. Destruction Sword Principle, Creation Sword Principle, Slaughter Sword Principle, Dominating Sword Principle, Soft Sword Principle, Proud Sword Principle, Ethereal Sword Principle, Dreamy Sword Principle, Mountain River Sword Principle, Secular Sword Principle, Emotionless Sword Principle, Immortal Sword Principle. These sword essences can be comprehended by practicing the corresponding Sword Principle Heart Sutra. Oh, Father, what is the first heaven of Sword Principle? Chen Hao asked. The first heaven of Sword Principle is something related to luck, and I can only catch a trace of it. In short, you have already fulfilled some of the requirements. Wherever you are, it will definitely not be calm and peaceful, nor will the winds and clouds converge. A hidden dragon in the abyss will either turn into a dragon or fall. If you can stand out, you will be able to soar to the ninth heaven. I can't give you any advice. Well, you came back at this time because of me, right? Did you meet her, the nameless old man? Chen Hai changed the topic and said, Father, I'm sorry I couldn't hide it from her. Chen Hao said, she also knows something about you. Tell me. I was already mentally prepared. I should have known that you wouldn't be able to hide anything from her. I just didn't expect it to be so fast. Chen Hai's brows were tightly knitted, but he still spoke frankly. Chen Hao's expression made him realize that there might be more to the matter than he had expected. She asked me to pass this to you. I don't know what it is either. Chen Hao said in a low voice, hiding it from the treasure-hunting sword's spirit and the mysterious existence. As he spoke, he passed the memory crystal that he had extracted from the nameless old man's soul to his father. Sure enough, as he had expected, his father's expression changed greatly the moment he saw the memory crystal, and his eyes widened in shock. She said that if you don't want to see her, she'll never see you and mother again in this lifetime. But she told me to tell father. Chen Hai's hands were trembling. His brows were tightly knitted. He seemed to be in extreme pain as he held up the memory crystal and said, Speak. She hopes that father can fulfill his responsibilities as a father. She also has your flesh and blood. What? Chen Hai's eyes widened in shock. He looked at Chen Hao and said, How could she have my child? How could it be? Although she and I are husband and wife, we have never. Chen Hai suddenly realized that the person in front of him was his son, so he quickly shut up. But the expression on his face was obviously full of doubts, puzzlement, and shock. When Chen Hao heard his father's words, he felt a headache coming. If he hadn't seen Chen Shui, he might have other thoughts. But now, not to mention anything else, just Chen Shui's appearance was enough to prove everything. What's more, Chen Shui and her sister Chen Yan had some characteristics of his father. And the bloodline aura contained in the traces of life was exactly the same. Chen Hao was sure of this. After a slight hesitation, Chen Hao looked at his father who was in deep thought and pain. He couldn't help but say, Father, I have seen my sister. Her name is Chen Shui. She looks exactly like Yan and Chen Shui. Shui. How old is she? 21. 21. She has been pregnant for 162 years. I should have thought of it. Only she would do such a thing. Chen Hai said with a trembling voice. Father, can you tell me what's going on? What's the matter with my mother? Chen Hai looked at Chen Hao, shook his head, and said, You don't have to worry about these things. The situation is far more complicated than you think. You can't help now. Although I have never asked you, I know that you are a person who doesn't want to be under others. Since you have chosen this path, you must go down it without any distractions and worries. Tell Daddy about the situation after you stepped into the world of cultivation. Chen Hao thought for a moment and briefly told his experience after entering the cultivation world. Chen Hai listened quietly. With his knowledge, he could naturally feel that Chen Hao was special, but he didn't ask much. How could he not know his own son? Chen Hao's origins had always been a mystery that even he couldn't understand at all. Naturally, Chen Hao also had countless secrets. That's about it. When I go back this time, I will start to gain experience. 1 year later, I want to participate in the inter-sect competition. Chen Hao said. The inter-sect competition that is held once every 10 years. Only core disciples were qualified to participate in this competition. That is to say, within a year, you have to reach the nascent soul realm. Hearing Chen Hao's words, Chen Hai frowned slightly and said, Since you have decided, then work hard. The divine punishment from the elixir realm to the nascent soul realm is fatal for most people, but for you, it can only be regarded as a test at best. If you can accumulate patiently, you will be stronger when you reach the nascent soul realm. However, there is no need to worry about this. If you haven't decided where to go, I suggest you go to the Mirage Desert. The Mirage Desert. The Mirage Desert is in the middle of the eastern continent, the western continent, and the southern island group. It is a very famous area for gaining experience, and it is very suitable for super geniuses of the elixir realm and the nascent soul realm to gain experience. If you go, you can see the real super geniuses. It is a little dangerous, but without danger, it can't be considered an experience. More importantly, in the Mirage Desert, every 100 years, an ancient ruin would open and appear above the desert like a mirage. This was also the origin of the name of the Mirage Desert. If I remember correctly, it will open in about a month. It's very suitable for you. You can consider it. Alright, that's it. Push me over and have a meal with your mother. She's worried about you the most. The meal lasted for 2 hours. Different from his father, his mother asked about Chen Hao's well-being. She wanted to know everything about Chen Hao in the world of cultivation. Chen Hao didn't think his mother was long-winded at all. As long as his mother asked, he didn't hide anything. He accompanied his mother until the transmission token was about to be activated. Then he said goodbye to his parents and quickly flew to the wilderness. He didn't disturb anyone and left the world of cultivation. Before leaving, Chen Hao gave his father a storage ring and let his father distribute it. How is it? Chen Hao couldn't wait to ask in his mind after being transmitted back to the world of cultivation. I can't see. With my current ability, I don't dare to check your father. But your mother's soul is protected by layers of restrictions. I can't see through it for the time being. I'm afraid you will have to wait until you can fuse with me to the fifth realm to see through it, the mysterious existence said. The fifth realm? Chen Hao murmured and shook his head helplessly. Every time he saw his father, he thought he could get closer, but he found that he was getting farther and farther away. What did the fusion of the fifth realm mean? Golden core, nascent soul, incarnation, nascent soul, creation. Every time he advanced to the next realm, Chen Hao's fusion with the mysterious existence would improve. This meant that Chen Hao had to be at least in the creation realm to complete the fusion of the fifth realm. Moreover, even if he completed the fusion of the fifth realm, it was only a possibility, not a certainty. What kind of existence was his father? The creation realm was a realm that not even the sect leader-level authorities had reached. At least the star-picking sect masters' cultivation hadn't reached it. But you don't have to worry about your mother. There won't be any problems within 100 years, that's good. It seems that my father didn't really give up everything like I thought. Or, because I stepped into the cultivation world, he picked it up again? Whatever, as long as nothing happens for the time being. Chen Hao thought to himself. His eyes shone brightly, and he temporarily cut off the reverie in his heart. Food had to be eaten one bite at a time, and roads had to be taken one step at a time. Unrealistic ambition would only affect one's state of mind. Since he couldn't help his parents, he could only put it aside for the time being. Let's get out of here first. I'd like to see what realm I can reach in a year's time. Chen Hao turned into a stream of light and walked directly out of the transmission array used by the Heavenly Armament Pavilion to connect to the secular world. He didn't look at the situation of the 100 Empire rankings. There was no suspense in the results. Whether it was Helian Wuzi, Mo Yui, or Dongfang Jun, there was nothing to worry about. Especially Helian Wuzi. Not to mention the 100 Empire rankings, even if she participated in the Dragon Transformation list, she could win first place. The Mirage Desert is in the south of the Taishan Mountains. It's nearly 10 million miles away from here. It's impossible to fly there. After Chen Hao walked out of the transmission array, he didn't leave the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. A map of the cultivation world of the eastern continent appeared in his mind, and he determined his route. With his father's advice, he didn't have to choose a place to gain experience. Moreover, after Atoda's analysis, the Mirage Desert was indeed one of the best places to go. Especially the ancient ruins in the Mirage Desert, which only appeared once every 100 years. It was very rare. The closest city to the Taishan Mountains is Taishan City. Along the way, I have to pass through here. There are hundreds of cities. It will take nearly 2 days to travel by transmission array. Is this the Mirage Desert? Her blue dress fluttered in the air as she stared at the boundless desert and muttered. Write 1 chapter. I'll update first. I can't guarantee that I'll update in the next few days. When the time comes, I'll settle the accounts. But no matter how many chapters 10, Wushan will make up for it. I hope everyone can understand. At the end of last month, Wushan already said that before the middle of this month, it will be very tragic. I'll return to Kunming on the 10th, go to Nanjing on the 12th to attend the annual meeting of the publishing house, and return to Kunming on the 17th. It's only half a month. After returning, Wushan will go into seclusion and work hard to update. That you're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.